Rio is a helpless orphan who is sent to the slums after his mother is murdered. However, when a spirit goddess with mommy milkers gives him magic skills, he uses them to become overpowered so he can clap his enemies for revenge. It all starts with a boy named Haruto heading to university on a bus before it loses control and gets yeeted by the train. Meanwhile, in another world, a fragile boy named Rio wakes up in the slums and suddenly starts experiencing memories that are not his. He is confused to the point that he starts calling himself Haruto. But as he struggles with an identity crisis, some men enter the house. They get seated and begin feasting, and one of them tells Rio to wash himself because he smells like an average Annie and Dare viewer.
Brother, ugh.
As Rio steps outside, he is so hungry that he begins eating berries. Memories of Haruto flood his mind once again, but he reminds himself that he is Rio and he's living in these slums so he can avenge his mother. After remembering how she died, Rio wipes his tears and dresses up again. Just then, some women in white robes show up, and the elder one, Vanessa, sternly asks him if he has seen a girl with purple hair. When Rio hesitates to answer, the girl named Celia figures he might be intimidated and decides to talk to him politely. Rio calmly tells her he hasn't seen her, so when Celia suggests they look through the slums, Rio tells her not to. He explains that their group will stick out like a Discord mod at a gym, so Vanessa suggests they return after dressing up like common folks. The other girls, Christina and Rowena, protest, but Vanessa insists they head back. Before leaving, she asks Celia to check the vicinity for any magical presence, prompting her to cast a spell. This causes Rio's body to glow, and Celia realizes that he is overflowing with magic, which means he has the potential to become a mage. Since they don't detect any other presence, they decide to skedaddle, but not before handing him payment for giving them information. After Rio returns home, a masked person suddenly stabs him in the chest, but the coin pouch blocks the impact of the knife. Shocked, Rio looks around to find everyone else stabbed to death, and the masked man slowly starts approaching him with his knife. Right before he swings at him, Rio sees the spirit of a pretty lady, who appears for a few seconds and teaches him how to use his magic. After she disappears, Rio starts fighting back against the masked man, using magic combined with the fighting style he inherited from Haruto's memories. The masked man uses magic to enhance his abilities, but Rio aura farms him until he's knocked out. Just then, he notices someone tied up in a bag and opens it to find a purple-haired girl, who begs him to take her to the castle before passing out from the gruesome scene. Rio guesses she must be the princess those other girls are looking for, so he decides to carry her to the castle. On his way, he runs into the girls from earlier, but Christina grabs him by the shirt, accusing him of being a criminal. This causes Vanessa to draw her sword, and she orders Rio to accompany her to the castle or get game ended here. After Rio agrees, royal guards swarm his house and arrest the man who kidnapped the girl. Just then, a man in the crowd pops a pill, and the kidnapper mysteriously dies on the spot. Meanwhile, Rio is put under a torturous investigation where Charles, the vice captain of the royal guards, questions him. When Rio denies any involvement in the kidnapping, Charles starts treating him like a 90s housewife. Meanwhile, the kidnapped girl, Princess Flora, finally regains consciousness and is relieved to find herself back in her room. She then learns from Vanessa that the boy who saved her is currently being investigated. She asks her to bring Rio, so Vanessa and Celia show up and are horrified to see that he got folded like a lawn chair. At first, Charles is proud of his work, but when he learns Rio saved Flora's life, he starts sweating and tells his men to release him. After Celia heals him, Rio wakes up in a comfy bed and is surprised to see that all his wounds are gone. Celia apologizes for what he was put through, and Rio suddenly realizes she's the same girl he talked to outside his house. She also reveals that he'll have an audience with the king, who will reward him for saving his daughter by enrolling him in the Magic Academy. After taking Rio to the king, Celia takes him to the Magic Academy and asks him to come to her lab after school so she can teach him some basics. Before taking him to class, she tells him that most of the students here are crypto princesses, and they might not like him much. As soon as he enters the class, students start eyeing him like he's a vegetarian at a beat party, and once he introduces himself, they already start making fun of him. As he gets seated, Celia begins the lecture and asks the students to note down the problems, though she tells Rio to take it easy. After the classes end, Rio heads to Celia's lab, but when he knocks on the door, Celia rudely opens the door and tells him to read the Do Not Disturb sign. However, once she realizes it's Rio, she welcomes him in, and he sees that her lab looks like a skibidi bomb zone. Stepping inside, he comments that she looks pretty young even though she is a professor, and Celia reveals she's actually the same age as him, much to his shock. After pleasantries, she assigns him math problems, which Rio is able to solve with ease. Impressed by his skills, she reveals that his intellect is on par with Christina, the same freak who smacked him in the face earlier. What Celia does not know is that Ryo's memories have been merged with Haruto, who was a university student in his life. Celia asks where he learned to do maths, and he lies that his mother was the one who taught him. While serving tea, she asks Ryo if he had any issues on his first day, but he says it went mostly well. He then asks her to recommend some books so he can practice the new alphabet of this world. During combat training, the professor notices Ryo is quite good and asks him to strike him as hard as possible. As Ryo locks in, Haruto's memories of practicing martial arts take over, and he attacks the professor with all his strength. His sword skills are so cracked that the whole class pauses like it's a Fortnite live event, and after he catches the professor by surprise, he earns the man's respect. The old man says he has the potential to become a knight, but when Ryo says he has no interest, the whole class is shocked. Later, as he studies for exams in the library, Celia asks him to take it easy since he's only just joined. On the day of the exam, while others struggle with the questions, Ryo writes like a machine.
Hey yo, what the?
After he exits the room, he sees the students going about their day, which reminds him of the time a girl named Miharu betrayed Haruto. He recalls his childhood friend Miharu, whom he had promised to marry, but when they reached university, she got herself another man, which broke his heart. As the memories flood in, Ryo returns to his dorm, saddened by the tragic love story between Miharu and Haruto. However, he gets upset because none of it should concern him, because he is Ryo. When the test results come out, Ryo scores the same as Christina, the top student in their class, much to everyone's shock. Christina's Tier 3 simp Alphonse starts accusing him of cheating, but both Rowena and Christina scold him for throwing baseless accusations. Just then, Celia herself shows up and tells everyone that Ryo worked super hard, but even then, Alphonse refuses to accept it. Later in her lab, she congratulates Ryo for scoring the top spot, but she's worried the students will start Reddit hate threads against him. Ryo asks her if she faced the same treatment when she was a student, and Celia admits that the higher nobles would cause her troubles here and there. She says she had friends who helped her, and Ryo says he'll be fine too because he has her. Bro's Riz game is so strong it makes Celia blush, but she is flattered to learn that he sees her as a friend rather than a professor. After a little bit of teasing, Ryo tells her that he will come to her if he ever needs a friend, which makes her happy. She says he can cry on her jugs if need be. And Ryo jokes that there isn't much going on there.
Are you sure about that?
Which makes her laugh. 5 years later, during combat training, the professor reveals that an exhibition tournament is being held, and he needs the top 3 students as scurers. He chooses Alphonse, Stuart, and Ryo, and even though Ryo's selection sparks controversy, the professor stands his ground. At the lab, Celia reveals that he can get scouted by the Knights pre-graduation if he does well, but he sternly says he is not interested. Celia then notices that he's grown taller than her, but he jokes that she's still a shoddy. She then asks him what he plans to do after graduation, and Ryo says he's thinking of touching some grass. Realizing he might leave the country, Celia offers him a job at the lab, reminding him that he's really good at keeping this place clean. Ryo says she'll get married soon, and it won't be a good look to have a commoner in her lab. Celia says she doesn't plan to marry anytime soon, but Ryo calmly says many will be interested because she's a charming woman, which makes her blush. She then asks where he will go, and he says he'll go to his parents' homeland Yagumo. He recalls his mother telling him about it and promising to take him there when he grows up, and Celia can see the pain he hides behind his smile now that she's head. A few weeks later, the tournament begins, and a knight named Alfred serves as a referee. As Ryo is called to the arena, he runs into Alphonse on the way, who tells him not to choke or their whole class will get ratioed. As he steps into the area, he is shocked to see that his opponent is Charles, the same guy who tortured him 5 years ago. The match begins, and despite going against the seasoned warrior, Ryo holds his ground, which causes Charles to attack him recklessly. However, Ryo uses this against him and disarms him, prompting Alfred to declare him the winner. Charles starts making excuses, but Alfred tells him to stop being a wussy and accept defeat like a true man. That night, Charles gets drunk with his buddy Race, telling him that Ryo's the same kid who was accused of kidnapping the princess 5 years ago. Unbeknownst to him, Race is the same mysterious guy who game-ended the actual kidnapper from the crowd. The next day, Celia eagerly waits for Ryo so she can congratulate him in person. She then sees him going to the back, where a girl hands him a love letter, which makes Celia feel hurt. That night, she goes over the students' postgraduate plans, surprised to see that Ryo didn't write any. The next day, during class, Celia asks the students to do something as basic as controlling their magical power, and Alphonse believes she's doing this, especially for Ryo since he's a commoner. She handles it calmly, telling Alphonse and his friend Stuart to demonstrate their skills. Once they do, she uses magic to close the curtains and outperforms them with ease. After class, Stuart praises Celia for her show earlier and then accuses Rio of being a diddler in front of her to make him look bad. However, Celia tells him not to throw accusations without any proof, and Rio calmly walks out without saying anything, which makes Flora sad. Christina tells her to stay out of his business, but Flora still feels bad because she hasn't even thanked him for saving her. Later, the class gathers for an outdoor practice, and Rana tells Flora not to be worried because all the stronger monsters have been culled already. The students are then told that they have to pass through the mountains using the shortest route possible, avoiding as many monsters as they can. Rana then argues that they might not have enough time, but Stuart and Alphonse use their connections with the military to have them mark out the safest path throughout the area. As the operation begins, Stuart tasks Rio with carrying everyone's luggage, and Rio abides without causing a scene. Flora gently asks him if he would like a hand, but he calmly tells her not to worry about it. She then turns to Christina and tells her that this is blatant racism against Rio, but before they can do anything about it, a horde of goblins shows up out of nowhere. Alphonse, being the commander, tells the boys to stay calm and instructs them on how to approach this, which allows them to overcome the obstacle with ease. Just then, he sees Rio looking in the opposite direction, unaware that Rio has detected another presence behind them. As Race watches from the shadows, he realizes Rio is far more capable than he imagined. As they continue, Alphonse confidently leads them out of the woods, but they come across a cliff that wasn't marked on the map. Christina asks him what he's planning to do now, but before they can answer, the group is attacked by orcs. When the orcs hurl spears at them, Stuart catches one in the leg and stumbles into Flora, knocking her off the cliff. Rio notices this and jumps after her, using magic to hurl her back up while he falls down into the forest. Before the others can check up on him, the orcs pace up their attacks, so they get into formation to defend themselves. With the help of Christina and the others, the squad manages to clear out the orcs and Rio, who is down in the forest, hears their cheers from up top. Despite landing like a veteran Super Saiyan, Rio does not understand his own magical powers and worries others will be suspicious of him if he comes out unscathed. Meanwhile, the students begin discussing how Flora was yeeted off the cliff, and Stuart, not wanting to take responsibility, hurls all the blame towards Rio. Alphonse adds that he must have jumped down because he didn't want to live with the crime of almost game-ending the princess, but Flora tried to argue that nothing of the sort happened. In the end, they decide to let it go and move on, but Flora doesn't want to leave Rio behind. She vows to help him even if it means getting left behind. But Christina and Rowena try to knock some sense into her. Just then, a beefy Minotaur shows up, and not even Christina's Thunderball can do any damage to it. Alphonse suggests using Ice Lance, but when even that fails, he tells the squad to skedaddle out of there. Christina and Rona leave because they assume Flora has already escaped, unaware that she went back into the forest to heal those who were hurt. Just then, she hears the Minotaur approaching her and braces herself for a pounding, but Rio suddenly appears and slices off the Minotaur's hand. Flora quickly drags the injured student away, and Rio deflects Minotaur's attack like he is a Sekiro veteran. Eventually, he finds an opening and takes the monster down, but when the others show up, he decides to just run away before anyone sees him. Meanwhile, Race notices his ability to use spirit arts and realizes Rio is from the Yagumo region. At the academy, Celia is about to enter the principal's office when she overhears someone talking about Rio. He says Rio has gone missing, and even though Flora advocates for him, they can't let the blame fall on Stuart because it'll taint his family name. Thus, he decides to paint Rio as the culprit and asks Duke Huguenot to attend to the matter. That night, Rio sneaks into Celia's lab, and she immediately embraces him, explaining she was worried sick. Later, she tells him he's been accused of a false charge, but Rio calmly accepts it because he knows only the people in power decide what's right or wrong. He then thanks Celia for everything she did for him over the last few years, and that's why he came here to say one last goodbye. He promises to write her letters using his alias, and when she asks what it is, he reveals it'll be Haruto. She then asks if she'll ever see him again, and Rio promises they will meet in the future. After a warm hug, she sends him off with a smile. But as soon as he leaves, Celia breaks down into tears. She recalls all the good times they've spent together, from meeting him for the first time to becoming friends with him. After Rio leaves, Huguenot visits the cells and asks one of his assassin girls, Latifah, to find and game-end Rio using the scent on his uniform. For the next few days, Rio Naruto runs through the forest, avoiding monsters and following the map until he reaches the neighboring kingdom of Gelark. At the main gate, he notices a board of wanted men and decides to keep his head low, unaware that Latifah is following him. Going through the bustling town, he comes across a shop selling pasta and learns that Governor Lieslat came up with this idea. Rio orders one bowl for himself, and the taste reminds him of Haruto's world, making him wonder if Lieslat came from the same world as Haruto. After he's done, he asks the shopkeeper where he can get more, and the man points him toward the Rika Merchant Guild. Once there, he sees people eating menju, which is another dish from Haruto's world. As he steps inside, he is greeted by a worker named Lot, who takes him around the place, showing him all kinds of foods he's never seen before. Later, as he's served black tea, he's reminded of all those times he shared it with Celia. He then asks Lot if she used leaves from Lee's, and she says yes, revealing that they provide their customers with the highest quality of products to ensure more sales. Later, as Leto packs his stuff, Rio leaves a letter for Celia, letting her know that he won't be able to write for a while, but he's safe and sound. After he leaves, Lot's assistant mistakenly addresses her by her real name, Lieslat, but she quickly reminds her that she's under a guise. With that, Rio continues forward with lots of food when he runs into an unconscious girl in the forest. He stops to take a look at her, but she turns out to be Latifah, who tries to ambush him. He manages to avoid her attacks, but is injected with a poisonous dart, which blurs his vision. Realizing she's a beast girl, he uses healing magic to stop the poison so he can fight her at full strength. As the battle begins, Rio realizes she's super fast even without enhancing her body, which means one wrong move and he's toast. The two continue to exchange blows until Rio notices that she is too focused on her knives. This gives him the opportunity to attack her weak points, and he ends up disarming and pinning her to the ground. Assuming she's about to die, Latifah starts screaming for her mum, so Rio uses magic to put her to sleep before she attracts anyone. He then sees a collar of submission around her neck and realizes she is being forced to do this against her will. Using a spell he read from a book, Rio breaks the collar and suddenly gets a flashback of Haruto seeing a little girl in the same bus that took his life. Turns out, that girl woke up in the body of Latifah, who was a young slave to Stuart and his family. To make her submit, he put a collar around her neck, which would choke her every time she refused to follow one of his commands. Once she wakes up, Rio calmly tells her that if she fights him again, he might have to take her life. Getting hit with plist, Latifah immediately becomes submissive and agrees to stop. Rio then shows her the broken collar, and once she realizes it's off her neck, she completely breaks down in tears. After she's done, Rio gently asks who gave her the order, and she hesitantly says she doesn't know the name of her master. What she does know is the name of the person who used to torture and train her, and she tells him it was Stuart. Rio finally connects the dots that this house sent an assassin after him to save their son's image, so he sternly asks Latifah if she still plans to attack him. When she says no, Rio tells her she is free to go and that her gear is right behind her. Since beast girls are usually enslaved in the kingdom, he advises her to go to the west, to a land where humans and demi-humans live together in harmony. With that, Rio continues with his own journey, but realizes that Latifah is following him. He asks why she's still here, and she expresses her desire to go with him. Rio sternly says he did not break that collar with the intention to rescue or enslave her, but rather because he didn't want to take her life. However, Latifah, who has been imprisoned all her life, has no idea where to go and what to do. Even then, Rio reminds him that she tried to take his life earlier, and he cannot guarantee she won't do it again. Latifah is so desperate that she gives him the collar, asking him to put it around her neck to make sure she never attacks him again. Seeing her in this state moves Rio, so he agrees to let her tag along. Soon after, they take a break to fill their bellies, and Rio makes her a vegetable cheese sandwich, which she gobbles down with tears in her eyes. She tells him she has only eaten pet food until now, and Rio comforts her, promising her he won't treat her like this. With that, they continue their journey and reach the wilderness. Once Rio notices that Latifah is tired, he decides to set up camp since they are already across the border. That night, Celia gets a letter from Rio, and after reading it, she wishes that wherever he is safe and sound. Meanwhile, Rio decides to make spaghetti for dinner, and Latifah gets excited upon seeing it. He wonders how she knows what spaghetti is, but when Latifah fails to give a proper answer, he suspects she might have memories of a different world, just like him. That night, Latifah starts mumbling in her sleep about going back to Tokyo, and this confirms Rio's suspicions. The next day, Latifah wakes up before Rio and realizes he looks a lot like the boy she saw on the bus before it crashed. When Rio wakes up, she asks if she can call him Oni-chan, and Rio says he doesn't mind. He reflects on how she was so young when she died and then got enslaved in this world, so he takes it upon himself to put her heart at ease. And just like that, the duo keeps pushing through basically every Minecraft biome while also strengthening their bond each day. Being close to their destination, they set up another camp in the forest, and when Latifah begins having nightmares again, Rio uses magic to calm him down. When he notices someone outside, he leaves the tent to find a wolf outside. Just then, he gets flashbanged and ambushed by 4 demi-humans, so he uses his magic to defend himself, addressing them as demi-humans. He asks them that he comes in peace and wants to talk. Despite not trusting his kind, they eventually decide to accept his proposal since they have greater numbers. While the two of them, Orphan and Alma, leave to investigate the area, Sarah and Uzuma stay behind to talk to him. Sarah approaches him and starts off by telling him it's racist to call them demi-humans, so he apologizes before they cancel him on Twitter. As he introduces himself, Orphan and Alma spot Latifah in his tent and reveal that he's used spirit arts to put him to sleep. Without thinking, Uzuma leans forward and knocks him down, accusing him of diddling up one of their kind. As she keeps attacking, Rio asks them why they are being so aggressive, and Sarah explains that he's a suspect of kidnapping. He tries to explain that she's here by choice, but Uzuma refuses to trust him and keeps attacking. Eventually, the number game comes into play, and the demi-humans are able to take him down. After hitting airplane mode, Rio finds himself floating in endless water, and the spirit girl from earlier appears in front of him. He asks her who she is, but she says she doesn't know. All she knows is that she is connected to Haruto. After she says goodbye, Rio then sees Miharu in front of his eyes and wakes up, saying her name. He finds himself chained up on a bed, and Latifah immediately runs in, jumping on him and crying because she thought he was dead. Just then, the demi-humans from earlier enter the room with a sorry look on their face, and they are joined by an older person who apologizes to Rio on their behalf. When Latifah says she won't forgive them so easily, all the girls get on their knees to apologize again, and Rio forgives them because it was a mere misunderstanding. As Orphan unchains him, the older woman says he will receive a formal apology from the elders tomorrow, and until then, he can use this room to rest up. The next day, Rio follows her up the tree that holds their entire civilization, and she shows him another one, the world tree that holds the spirit of Dryas. She then asks if he ever had a spirit arts tutor, but he says he learned it from YouTube. After that, she takes him to the council meeting where the eldest demi-human Saldora welcomes him in. The woman he followed is Ursula, and the depressed Gandalf clone is Dominic. As Rio stands up to introduce himself, Sildora and the others bow down and offer a formal apology for the troubles he faced earlier. They also want to give him something to show gratitude, but since they don't know what he wants, they ask him to make a wish. Rio calmly asks them to take Latifah into their care, and Ursula reveals they were planning to do that anyway, since Latifah is attached to them. She also asks him to stay in their village for a bit so she gets used to it. Rio agrees to stay and even asks them to assign him a teacher so he can learn more spirit arts from them. Just then, a green-haired spirit appears in the room, and Ursula addresses her as Lady Dryas. Dryas immediately takes a liking to Rio, noticing that he has a faint spirit inside his body. She asks him if he's made a covenant with this spirit, and Rio says he has no idea. However, when he learns that a human's ability to use magic is greatly hindered by covenant, he starts to think that he might have made one without realizing it. Dryas asks if he can take a look in, and when he says yes, she gently cups his face, which makes his pickle jump out. Dryas then reveals he has a very rare person-shaped spirit inside of him, and those spirits who can take the shape of a person are one of the strongest out there. She adds that there used to be 6 of these spirits, but they all disappeared after the Divine Demon War 1,000 years ago. Rio turns to the elders and asks if that changes anything, and they say they might have to treat him as a saint, much like they do with Lady Dryas. After the meeting, Rio is taken to his new home in the village, and Latifah shows him around like it's a 5-star hotel. As they get to eat, they learn that the food they are having is grown in the Yagumo region. After they're done eating, Sarah reveals that she, Orphan, and Alma have been instructed to live here and serve him. Just then, Ursula shows up to ask for his permission, but he worries others might not like it when they see them living with a human. However, Ursula believes that if the others see him living peacefully with their kind, they will grow to accept him sooner. Besides, if Latifah lives under the same roof as the other of her kind, it will be easier for her to stay behind once he plans to leave. Rio agrees to let them stay and asks him to stop calling him sir, so they decide to call him master instead. Afterward, the girls show him around the place, and after a whole year, he becomes a well-accepted member of their community. Meanwhile, Race arrives in a desert with his subordinate and asks him to guard a cave while he retrieves something valuable from the inside. Soon after, Race returns with a massive egg and hands it to his subordinate, telling him it'll help increase their military strength. As they ride the griffin back home, Race notices a horde of wyverns following them with a smirk. Later, everyone gathers in front of the tree to celebrate Rio's one-year anniversary in this village and to watch Lady Dryas give Rio and Latifah a kiss of blessing. After the ceremony, the village holds a feast at night, and Rio finds himself squished between the girls. Both Sarah and Orphia are overdosed on beer, so they start acting overly touchy with Rio, which makes Latifah jealous. Soon after, Alma arrives and tells them not to bother Rio, but they argue that they want to be closer to him. They add that even though Latifah treats them as family, he, on the other hand, still hasn't fully accepted them. Realizing they feel left out, Rio promises to treat them better, which makes them all happy. After they leave to drink even more, Ursula shows up and comments that Latifah appears quite happy here. Rio says it's best if he tells her now because he has to leave soon, but it might wipe the smile off her face. Nearby, Race and his subordinate decide to set camp, and Race decides to investigate the area. Before leaving, he hands the guy a red pill and asks him to swallow it, saying it will allow him to track his location in case he gets in trouble. After that, he flies up and sees the wyverns still following them, which is a part of his plan. Meanwhile, Rio takes Latifah on a walk and asks her if she enjoys living here. When Latifah says yes, he stays silent for a moment but then tells her that it's time for him to leave the village. As she hears in shock, he explains that his original destination was always to the east. Latifah wants to come with him, but he says no because he has never been there before, and it might be too dangerous. Overwhelmed with emotion, Latifah runs away, leaving Rio to question his decision. Meanwhile, Lady Dryas notices a strange presence in the barrier and informs the elders, who quickly hold a meeting to discuss the approaching danger. As they send Sarah and the girls to scout ahead, Race returns to the wyvern cave, which is filled to the brim with eggs, while the wyverns chase the one missing egg he left in the forest. While he steals those eggs one after the other, Sarah and her squad fly over the pond and see Race's subordinate with a griffin. Before landing, Sarah asks them not to initiate combat, but the guy immediately cuts the griffin's rope and tries to escape, leaving them with no other choice. As the griffin flies towards the village, they decide to go after it, only to be interrupted by wyverns. The girls quickly deduce that the wyverns are after their stolen egg, so Sarah commands them to stop this before the village is damaged. Meanwhile, as soon as Race finishes looting the cave, he pops another red pill, which game ends his subordinate. As he falls from the griffin, the egg lands in the forest, right next to Latifah, for plot convenience. Just then, the wyvern Alpha shows up and assumes she's the one who broke the egg. Back at the village, Rio learns that the ceremony is cancelled because of a wyvern attack, so he immediately runs to the forest to make sure Latifah is okay. As Latifah is getting beaten up by the wyvern, Alma quickly shows up and uses her magic to divert its attacks. When she tries to take the wyvern head-on, she realizes she is not strong enough and hides. However, Latifah learns that the village is at risk, so she becomes bait for the wyvern to lure him away from the people. Soon after, Rio shows up too, and she apologizes for running away like this. With the final boss here, the fight becomes rather easy as Rio beats the wyvern with his bare hands. As a last resort, the wyvern tries to hurl a fireball towards the village, but Rio makes it collide with a fireball of his own and forces it to explode inside the wyvern's mouth, which causes its death. Once the alpha falls, the other wyverns run away, and Rio is soon joined by the rest of the girls. Alma tells them that Rio defeated the wyvern all by himself, but the man acts like it's an average Tuesday for him. Sarah then reveals that wyverns are smart creatures who won't fight someone they can't beat, and since Rio took down their alpha, they decided to skedaddle. The next day, Latifah apologizes for how she acted last night, revealing that she already knew he would have to leave one day. She also thinks that she is a troublemaker for Rio, which is why he wants to leave. After Rio assures her that that's not the case, she hugs him tightly and says she wants to be her little sister forever, even when they are not together. He then tells her that he's going to Yagumo because that's where his parents came from, and he might find more of his family there. At last, Latifah decides to tell him that she actually died once before and was reincarnated into this world. But she is shocked to learn that Rio is the same as him. He didn't tell her before, but her mental state wasn't very stable when they first met, and also because he didn't want to have regrets about his previous life. Latifah asks if he still thinks about Japan, and Rio admits he does, but he decided long ago that he'll forget about Haruto and live as Rio in this world, which is why he wants to visit Yagumo. The following day, Rio decides to leave the village, and the elders come together to bid him farewell. Dominic gives him a mithril sword and sturdy armor as a parting gift, and Ursula provides him with elf medicine. While the beast people supply him with plenty of food and drink, Rio realizes it's a bit too much for him to carry, so Soldor grants him a space-time cage, a magical item that works as a video game inventory. After saying goodbye, Rio finally flies away, leaving Latifah in tears. Back in Celia's lab, she realizes she hasn't received any letters from Rio and wonders if he's okay. Unbeknownst to her, Rio has already arrived in Yagumo. 2 weeks later, Rio is still searching for clues regarding his parents, and even though he has had no luck so far, he knows he is from here because everyone here has dark hair. Soon after, Rio finds two shotties, Sahyo and Ruri, working the fields and asks them to take him to the head of the village. Ruri reveals that her grandma is the head, so she immediately takes him to her. Once there, Rio introduces himself and reveals he's traveled through many lands to get here. The old woman introduces herself as Yuba and asks why he's here, and he says he's come looking for someone who once used to live here. Yuba invites him in, and he tells her his parents used to live here around 15 years ago. Rio then says their names, Zen and Ayame. But before he can speak further, Yuba sends the girls away because she doesn't want them poking their noses into Rio's family business. Afterward, he reveals his father died even before he could get to know him, so he lived with his mother until she died too. Rio says he wanted to come here so he could make graves for his parents and honor them with a proper memorial. Yuba then drops the bomb that she is Zen's mother, which means she is Rio's grandmother. She then reveals that she's already made graves for both of his parents and takes him there so he can pay his respects. She also reveals that his parents had to lead Yagumo for some urgent reason, and those who knew they would never return made graves to remember them. Rio asks if she's comfortable sharing their reason, but Yuba tells him she will when the time is right. She then asks him to live with her, reminding him that he's her grandson and she wants to watch over him. She then reveals that she lives with Ruri, who is the daughter of Zen's older brother, making her Rio's cousin. She then asks him to stay with them again and promises that she won't tell anyone about his parents, at least for now. After Yuba leaves, Rio stays there for a bit before joining her and Ruri for dinner. The next day, Rio wakes up early so he can make them breakfast, but is distracted when Ruri shows up looking like a Twitch thought. However, once she realizes they have a house guest, she panics and runs back to her room to change. Later, Rio decides to make miso soup for everyone, and during the process, he learns that both Yuba and Ruri know how to use spirit arts. He then surprises them by making boiling water using his own spirit art, which is something not even Yuba can do. Soon after, Ruri's friends Chin and Sayo arrive, and after introductions, they dive into the delicious miso soup Rio made. After they are done, Yuba asks Shin to take Rio to Dola's place because he might want to become a hunter. Shin worries Rio might not be suitable for a job because he's built like a short, slender man, but Yuba assures him he's more capable than he looks. To test his skills, Shin agrees to take him, but after he leaves, Ruri notices that Sayo is getting the hots for him. Meanwhile, the boys meet up with Dola to hunt, and Rio outperforms Shin by a mile, much to his frustration. On his way back, Rio realizes he got all dirty while hunting, so he literally pulls out a full-blown hot spring bath out of nowhere. After relaxing in the hot water, he exits the bath to find Ruri and Sayo outside, who are amazed at just how much he can do with his spirit arts. Just then, Ruri smells something fresh on Rio and even pushes Sayo into him so she can have a sniff too. Rio reveals it's the smell of soap, which amazes them even more. When Shin and his friends show up, she tells them Rio made a bath using spirit arts, but Shin gives him a cold shoulder because he's already outshining in everything. Ruri scolds him for being rude, and even his own sister, Sahyo, doesn't like the way he treats Rio, which frustrates him even more. As the days go by, Rio becomes an eye candy for the ladies for helping around on the farms, and Sahyo develops a crush on him. After a bountiful harvest, Yuba tells him they will sell their extra rice to the royal capital, and she wants him to guard their transport team. Meanwhile, at Yuba's place, Shin and his friends get into an argument with a man named Gon who has invaded their house without permission. When Gon tries to rizz up Sayo and Ruri in the baths, Shin prepares to fight him, but Ruri tells him not to because Gon is the son of the neighboring village's head. She then asks Gon why he is here, and he explains he needs to spend the night at her place because his cart broke and it'll take time to repair. When she tells him to go to the guest house, Gon tells him he's gonna be her husband anyway, so it won't change much if he swipes her V-card early. Hearing this, Shin loses his cool and attacks Gon, but the man easily blocks it and starts choking him. Just then, Yuba shows up and orders Gon to let Shin go. Afterward, she scolds Gon for going too far and tells him to use the guest house at the edge of the village for the night. As Gon and his men casually walk away, they lock eyes with Rio. Gon tries to kick Rio's leg but ends up tripping, so he walks away in embarrassment. After he's gone, Yuba asks everyone to return to their homes and forbids them from leaving until Gon and his men leave. That night, Ryo gives the girls a red protective amulet and asks them to place it somewhere in the room. Meanwhile, Gon and his men rest in their guest house, and they are definitely planning something sinister. The following day, a tax examiner, Hayate, arrives in the village, and both Yuba and Ryo welcome him into the house, offering him a fine meal. That evening, Ryo is practicing his sword skills outside when he notices the girls secretly watching him. As they join him, they ask why he practices martial arts, and it takes him into a memory of Haruto promising to protect Miharu when he was young. He tells them he had a crush when he was young, and learned martial arts to protect her, but they're no longer in contact, and she's found herself a different lover. That night, while the girls are asleep, Gon sneaks into their room, but the red pill Ryo gave them starts to glow. Before Gon can stab Ruri with his sausage, Ryo shows up and catches him red-handed. Seeing him in this state reminds him of the man who murdered his mother, so Ryo drops all the pleasantries and beats the living bejesus out of him. Luckily, Hayate and his men show up in time to stop him from outright game-ending Gon. While Sage heals Gon, he tells his men to notify the kingdom so Gon can be punished properly for his crimes. Meanwhile, Ryo leaves to touch some grass, reflecting on how he almost took someone's life, which makes him the same as the person who murdered his mother. The next day, Hayate informs the girls that Gon has been taken into custody, and they thank Ryo for saving them. However, Ryo believes he caused them a great deal of trouble and apologizes, and Yuba vaguely comments that he's just like someone she once knew, which piques Ruri's curiosity. A few days later, as the village is ready to transport rice, Yuba thanks Hayate for not only taking Gon to prison, but also protecting their transport. Hayate tells her not to mention it, as he is the servant of the kingdom, and it is his duty. She then hands him a letter and asks him to give it to his father, Lord Guki, so Hayate promises to deliver it once he returns to the capital. The transport leaves with Hayate's crew, but once they part ways, Ryo, Shin, and Sayo are tasked with protecting it. Several days later, they arrive at the royal capital of Karasuki and check into a hotel. After settling in, Dola asks Ryo and Shin to come along with him, and together, they make sure Gon and his party hit the new prison dock early. However, Shin is not happy because he wants to crack Gon's coconuts with a hammer. Later, they head to a shokudo where Dola treats them with kamutan. Afterward, Shin finally drops his tough guy act and thanks Ryo for saving his sister, but he tells him not to mention it. The next day, Ryo and Sayo head to the market to buy some stuff, and on their way back, he asks if she'd like to have some kamutan. He also tells her that Shin wanted to get some for her so she can eat it, and make some for him at home. Soon after, they stop at a jewelry stall where the lady asks Ryo to get something for his cute girlfriend. Sayo quickly tells her they're not together, but Ryo suggests she get something for herself. Despite hesitating at first, Sayo browses through the stock and finds herself a pretty hairpin. She tries it on and absolutely loves it, but when she learns it's an expensive piece, she tells Ryo not to buy it. However, Ryo is a certified Rizzler and buys it for her anyway. As they walk back, they spot some chaos in the crowd and see a man trying to kidnap a girl named Komomo. He quickly jumps in and saves the girl, handing her to her guard. When more of the guards show up on the scene, Ryo grabs Sayo's hand, telling her it's time to skedaddle. Later, Lord Goki informs Hayate that someone tried to abduct Komomo, and she was rescued by a brave young man. Hayate questions who this man is, but Lord Guki tells him that the boy vanished before the guards showed up. He then hands him the letter Lady Yuba entrusted to him and informs him that it is of the utmost importance. Reading the letter, Lord Goki gets shaken up and asks Hayate if he has met someone named Ryo. Meanwhile, Ryo and Sayo return with the supplies, and Sayo tells Shin she finally tried kamutan, so she'll do her best to recreate it once they return home. When she's asked about the hairpin, Sayo starts blushing, making everyone realize she's going to get smashed tonight. Just then, Hayate shows up at the door, and they hold a meeting with his father, Lord Goki, and his wife, Kayoko. They reveal that they both were attendants of his mother, Ayame, and she was actually from the royal family of Karasuki, which shocks Ryo. 20 years ago, the Karasuki kingdom was at war with the Rokuran kingdom, and Ryo's father Zen volunteered to be a soldier. He had a natural gift for both spirit arts and martial arts, and due to his skill, he was granted the rank of a warrior noble. During that time, Lord Goki put his skills to the test, and after realizing that he was the real deal, he recommended that Zen become a guard of the royal family. He was assigned to be Ayame's personal guard, and soon after, she started to grow a liking towards him. A truce meeting was held to end the war, but the prince who came as an ambassador grew a liking towards Ayame. That night, he sent his men to abduct her in her sleep, but Zen was there to protect her and beat up his men. Furious, the prince demanded they execute Zen and make Ayame his wife, or he would call off the truce. That is why, with the support of his father, Ayame made the decision to run away with Zen. Lord Goki adds that he hadn't heard of them for all these years until he read a letter from Lady Yuba. He is certain that Ryo is Ayame's son, so he asks him to join them in the castle so the king and the queen can meet their grandson. The next day, Ryo finally meets King Homura and Queen Shizuku, and they tell him to drop the formalities. As they get seated, Shizuku asks about his parents, and he boldly tells them they have been long dead. Homura asks for details, so Ryo tells them his father died before he got to know him, and he lived happily with his mother until he was 5. Then she died too, and he has been on his own ever since. He says her cause of death is brutal, but they insist he tell them how it happened. He finally reveals that she was murdered in front of him by a man named Lucius, who used to work alongside his father as an adventurer. One day, while Ayame was out, Lucius entered their house and forced him to drink a strange fluid. By the time Ayame returned, Ryo was half unconscious, and Lucius took her life in front of him. After her death, Ryo was dumped in the slums, so he lived as an orphan for the next 2 years. Then one day, he rescued a princess and was allowed to attend a prestigious magic academy as a reward. Even though he was treated harshly there, he found someone who made it a whole lot easier. After 5 years at the academy, he set out on a journey to return to his homeland to fulfill the promise he made to his mother. His grandparents are under the impression that their daughter hated them, so they are relieved to learn that she still considers them family. Homura then asks Ryo about the man who assassinated Ayame, and he says he will never forgive him. He says revenge is the only thing that fuels him, and even though Homura understands, he asks him to tread carefully because revenge often leads to misery. After that, Homura asks him to have a duel with Lord Goki, as he is the strongest warrior in the kingdom. His reasoning is that Lucius might also have game-ended Zen, so if he seeks to fight him, he must be strong enough to at least hold his ground against Lord Goki. As they head to the practice field, they run into Komomo and her guard, who informs them that Ryo was the one who saved them earlier. As the duel begins, Ryo impresses Goki with his impressive speed and skill, prompting him to use his strongest attack. However, doing so makes him drop his guard, and Ryo uses that sliver of a second to turn the tables. To everyone's surprise, Ryo ends up defeating Goki. With that, he prepares himself to avenge his parents, ready to accept the ugly truth of this world. That night, Ryo tells Ruri that he is his first cousin and the prince of this kingdom, and Yuba confirms his claim. At first, Ruri believes they are messing with him, but Yuba assures her that Ryo is telling her the truth. She immediately gets on her knees to bow to him, but Ryo tells her not to treat him like royalty. Ruri agrees on the condition that he stops calling her Miss, and instead uses her first name, and Ryo agrees to this. He then reveals that he plans to leave the village next year, which makes Ruri sad. She questions whether he'll return to see her again, and Ryo responds that he will if permitted, though his formality irritates her. The next day, Ryo meets up with the others, and they notice that he and Ruri are addressing each other in an informal manner. When asked why, Ruri says they're living in the same house, so she asked him to be easy around her. As the days go by, Ryo becomes a significant member of the community and even helps set up water turbines for the village. During the next planting season, he teaches a new way to plant crops and notices that Sayo is lagging behind. When he goes over to help her, he tells her he wants to supervise everyone in the village once he's gone, and this catches her off guard because she did not know he was leaving. She asks if he'll visit regularly, but Ryo says it won't be possible because he wants to travel the country. He also says he hasn't told anyone, but since she's a close friend of Ruri, he wanted to inform her beforehand. Hearing this, Sayo begins to tear up but quickly wipes them off before Ryo can notice. Soon after, Ruri joins her and she acts as if she's fine while working, though it's obvious it has deeply hurt her. That evening, Shin returns home to find her sobbing and asks what's wrong. Sayo once again pretends to be okay, but Shin figures Ryo must have done something and decides to wipe the floor with him. However, Sayo stops him, saying she's sad because Ryo is leaving the village, so Shin decides to have a word with him. Arriving at Yuba's place, Shin bows down and begs Ryo to stay in the village, which shocks him. Sayo soon joins him and apologizes for the trouble Shin has caused before driving him away. As the days go by, Sayo puts her heart into training her spirit arts, her body, and her sword skills. Meanwhile, the crops are finally harvested, and the village holds a festival as usual to celebrate it. During the festival, Goki challenges anyone to beat him in wrestling, while his wife Kayoko helps around with other tasks. While Rio is thanking her for the help, Sayo shows up and asks if she can have a moment alone with him. She takes him to the woods, and Rio notices that he is still wearing the hairpin he got her last year. Sayo then finally admits that she is in love with him, and even though he is surprised, he apologizes because he cannot return her feelings. When he says part of the reason is that he is leaving the village, she quickly tells him to take her along, revealing that she's been working really hard so that she wouldn't slow him down. She begs him to take her, but Rio calmly refuses, saying he cannot return her feelings. Even then, she says she doesn't care if he loves her back or not. All she wants is to stay by his side. Despite that, Rio tells her no and walks away, noticing that Shin has been watching him all this time. After he leaves Sayo in tears, Shin arrives to comfort her, followed by Lord Guki, who asks her if she loves Rio enough to cast aside the village she was raised in. Sayo says yes, so he decides to train her to become stronger. A few days later, Rio's time to leave finally arrives, and he thanks Yuba and Ruri for everything before setting out on his journey. On the way, he runs into Sayo waiting for him at the village entrance. She wishes him well on his journey and promises to do her best, and they say their farewell before parting ways. Soon after, he arrives in the Beast People's village to meet with Latifah, and she greets him with a big hug. As they feast with the elders, he tells them about Yuba and Ruri and that they want to meet Latifah. He also reveals he plans to stay for only a few months this time, but he promises Latifah that he will return sooner this time. When the elders ask if he needs anything on the journey, he reveals he was thinking of having a portable house in this space-time cache. They decide to leave the house building to Dominic and advise him to spend his time with Latifah and the others in the meantime. That night, he returns home and notices that everyone has grown up a lot since the last time he saw them. Seeing the girls goof around makes him feel like he's finally home, at least for now. A few days later, the girls wake up to Rio's scream and rush to his room to find him panicked with a pink-haired shoddy in his arms. The girls assume he ate some cookie last night, but he assures them that it's a misunderstanding and he doesn't even know who this girl is. After some back and forth, the girl finally wakes up and reveals she's the spirit who formed a covenant with him. Rio then recalls Dryas telling him that he has a spirit in him and connects the dots. However, he does not remember forming a covenant with her and realizes that she is the same girl who appeared when he was attacked in the slums. When he asks her these questions, she sadly tells him she does not know. When he asks the girls, they say they haven't seen a human-shaped spirit before, so they have no idea how this works. He then asks her for her name, but she says she doesn't have one and would like him to give her one. The girl asks him why she's been calling him Haruto this entire time, and Rio promises to explain later. He then starts talking to the spirit, learning that they have the ability to talk telepathically. She asks if he wants her to call him Rio, but he says he's fine with Haruto as well. As for naming her, Rio says he needs some time because this all happened too quickly, and his brain is barely working as it is. The girls then suggest they talk to the elders because Lady Dryas is a person-shaped spirit too, and might have some advice for them. Rio asks the spirit to come along, and she casually stands up, putting her whole stock on display before generating a new dress with mana. Seeing her beauty reminds Rio of Miharu with hair like warm spring flowers, so he decides to name her Aisha. Sarah reveals it means warm spring, and Rio adds that he thought the same when he looked at her. Soon after, they take Aisha to the elders, who cannot figure out why she lost her memories upon awakening. Just then, Lady Dryas shows up and introduces herself to Aisha. After talking with her, even Dryas can't figure out why she doesn't remember anything, and when she asks her what she knows, Aisha says she only knows Haruto. Rio then explains that Haruto is the alias he used in the Straw region because he is wanted there, purposely hiding the fact that Haruto is the person he once used to be. Dryas then asks Aisha what element she is most comfortable with, and she says all of them, which shocks everyone. To test her powers, they take her outside to duel Rio, and the two put on a show for everyone. They engage in battles of both martial arts and spiritual art, to the point that Rio has to go all out against her. When things start to get a little too intense, Lady Dryas calls off the match before they turn the whole village into a crater. They all acknowledge that Aisha is really strong, but since she is still not stable, Dryas takes it upon herself to train her. For the next few weeks, Aisha trains her spirit arts while also learning more and more about the world she is in. Soon after, Dominic takes Rio to the portable house he made and asks him to set a foundation before using it. Rio thanks him for the help and tells him to inform the other elders that he will be leaving tomorrow, as everyone else leaves to make him dinner. Sarah stays behind and advises him to talk to Latifah because she isn't gonna take this lightly. That night, while relaxing in the bath, he realizes he has been very selfish ever since Aisha woke up and hasn't made time for Latifah. Just then, Latifah enters the bath and asks if she can wash his back, and when he says no, she gets quite upset. Eventually, Ryo agrees to let her do what she wants, and the two use this time to bond. She tells him that in her previous life, her name was Suzune, and she's telling her this because she wants to know what his name was back then. Ryo tells her he used to go by the name Haruto in Japan, but he told everyone a different story. Latifah then reveals she used to take the same bus to school every day, and there was an older boy who would sit across from him daily. Ryo realizes she was there when the accident happened and apologizes for being a terrible brother. But Latifah hugs him and asks him to come home soon. The next day, before leaving, Ryo receives teleportation crystals from the elders so he can come back anytime he wants. He also receives an ear pin that lets him change his hair color so he can disguise himself in the Straw region. After saying goodbye, Ryo takes Aisha with him, and on the way, he explains that they're going there to meet Celia. Meanwhile, Celia dearly holds the only letter she ever received from Ryo when Charles shows up and starts flirting with her. Celia puts up with his bees until a messenger arrives and asks him to attend to his duties. Soon after, Ryo and Aisha arrive in the Straw region, and Ryo uses the ear pin to change his hair color. He heads to a bakery to buy some sweets, where he learns that it's crowded because there's going to be a royal wedding tomorrow. That night, Ryo sneaks into the academy with Aisha, who uses her spirit form to break her in. Arriving outside Celia's room, Ryo finds the lab completely emptied and decides to check the other rooms. Using Aisha's magic, he asks another researcher about Celia's whereabouts, only to learn that she's in the royal palace because she's getting married tomorrow. To make it worse, she is getting married to Charles, the same idiot who tortured Ryo all those years ago. The man also reveals that things went south in the recent war, and they barely managed to hold peace negotiations with the enemy. However, to maintain unity during this time of peace, the royal family has decided on a political marriage between Celia and Charles. He also tells them that the previous Duke, Philip, has fled the kingdom with his family, and tensions are at an all-time high between the nobles. After putting the man to sleep, Ryo leaves the lab and tells Aisha that he needs to see Celia in person before the wedding. Aisha wants to help him, so she decides to use her spirit form to find a safe passage inside the royal palace. That night, Celia is having dinner with her father, Roland, and Charles, who reveals he plans to have a big ceremony so everyone can see that their houses are aligned. As the men discuss other trivial matters regarding the marriage, Celia sits there silently with a gentle but fake smile on her face. Charles also discusses the rumors about some nobles, including Roland, having been in contact with the previous duke, but Roland sternly tells him that he's loyal to the kingdom, and these are false accusations. Despite that, Charles continues to speak to him in a condescending manner, and Roland stays silent because he doesn't want a civil war to break out. Meanwhile, as Ryo waits outside the palace, Aisha relays to him a safe route through telepathy. Inside her room, Celia is mentally preparing herself to marry Charles and become his property, and she holds on to the letter Ryo sent her years ago for comfort. Even after all these years, she still slaps her kitty every night thinking of him, so she decides to burn his letter. Just then, Ryo sneaks into her room, which startles her at first, but once she recognizes him, she sprints right into his arms. She mentions that he's grown quite tall, but Ryo jokingly says that she's still a 4-footed menace, which annoys her. Celia gets all excited to hear about his stories from the last 4 years, so she immediately makes him tea like she used to when they were at the academy. Ryo knows she's trying to hide her pain, so he straight up asks her if she's getting married to Charles. Celia keeps a smile on her face and says yes, so Ryo asks her if this is something she really wants. Celia gives him a political reply, telling him that she consented to this marriage, but Ryo is still not satisfied and asks if she's doing it for her family's sake. Celia chooses to keep her act, saying she's ready to marry, and Charles is a kind and chivalrous man.
You're a liar.
When Ryo looks at her, all confused, she gets frustrated and asks if he's going to marry her instead. However, she then quickly regains control of her emotions and tells him she was just joking. Then, all of a sudden, she tells him that he should leave and even asks him not to attend the ceremony tomorrow because it will be too embarrassing for her. Ryo just stands there without saying a word, so she pushes him outside and gives him 20 seconds to leave. After he's gone, Celia thanks him in her heart for coming to see her again and also apologizes for kicking him out because she can't let him get tangled in this. Outside, Ryo tells Aisha that he wasn't able to find out Celia's true feelings, but he does know that she doesn't want this marriage. Even when she says so, Aisha tells him to do something about it, and whatever he does, she promises to be by his side. The next day, Race arrives in the kingdom and is greeted by Charles himself, who asks him to stay for a while. Race reminds him that even during peace, they are from opposite sides, and it'll cause problems if they are too friendly. As the two chatter, Ray suddenly senses a spirit nearby and gets his guard up. Meanwhile, as Celia dresses up, Charles arrives and introduces her to his 6 other wives, which leaves her in shock. The first one, Tanasia, explains to Celia that even though she is from a noble family, she is the last amongst them and will be treated as such once she marries Charles. Just then, Celia learns that Christina is here to see her, so Celia calmly asks the other wives to continue this later. After Christina arrives, she demands Charles' other wives leave them so she can have some private time with her old friend. After exchanging pleasantries, Christina apologizes to Celia because she knows this marriage is being held to cover up the mess her father left when he fled the kingdom. Celia tells her that she is marrying Charles because she wants to, but Christina doesn't buy it because Celia has lost her smile. She says she used to look up to him when she was a student, so if there's anything she can do to help, all Celia has to do is ask. Celia looks past her request, wishing her the best of luck in resolving her family issues. Soon after, the wedding ceremony officially begins, and the people start calling Celia the Silver Bride due to her silver hair. Charles uses this opportunity to let Celia know that he's gonna explore her hidden chambers tonight. As their carriage moves towards the palace, Celia suddenly hears Aisha's voice, telling her to look to the right. Once she does, she spots Rio in disguise and begins sobbing. When Charles asks her why she's crying, she tells him she's just overwhelmed and quickly composes herself. As the carriage stops, Charles gets up and extends his hand, but before Celia can take it, she sees Rio running towards her. As the guards surround him, Rio starts tossing them like dominoes until he's facing the last line of defense between him and Celia. Charles is confident his elites will take him down easily, but Rio breezes past them and punches him in the gut. As Charles drops to his knees, Rio suddenly holds a knife to Celia's throat, which sends everyone into panic. Using telepathy, he explains to Celia that this is all part of his plan and all she needs to do is stay quiet for a bit. He then asks her again if this is what she really wants, and Celia continues to keep up her act. Rio then asks if she's been forced into this marriage, and her reaction says it all. He says he can end it all if she asks, and even when he knows he's being foolish, she means too much to him, which is why he can't let her go without trying everything. He asks one last time, and Celia says that if she puts her feelings in front, it will cause trouble for her family, which is something she doesn't want. Rio says that it's okay to be selfish sometimes, and if she were really down for this marriage, she wouldn't be staring into the void like it owes her rent. After some thought, Celia tells Rio to take her away, and the guy runs through the crowd while carrying her in his arms. After jumping over the foot soldiers, he uses spirit arts to deflect the mages, and Ray starts to suspect that this guy might be the same Rio from 4 years ago. To test his strength, Race hurls a dark magic ball at him, and Rio manages to deflect it, which impresses Race. As Rio continues forward, the head of security, Alfred, deploys aerial troops in pursuit and leaves the Nessa in charge while he leaves with the ground troops. Meanwhile, Rio runs over the rooftops to avoid the Griffin units, but when he realizes they're faster than he expected, he hands Celia over to Aisha, so he can shake them off easily. After seeing him empty-handed, the aerial troops begin firing at him, but he expertly dodges all of their attacks. After briefly engaging with the ground troops, he decides to move on, but is stopped by Alfred, who challenges him to a duel. As the two begin, Alfred proves to be the strongest foe Rio has faced so far, and the battle proves even more challenging because Rio refuses to hurt him. However, Alfred believes he is being underestimated and decides to use his full strength. With one big attack, Alfred causes a huge explosion, which apparently obliterates Rio, but in reality, he's used the glow as a cover to escape. Meanwhile, Celia is on a cliff nearby with Aisha, and as they're hit with a thunderstorm, she prays for Rio's safety. Soon after, Rio arrives, and Celia is delighted to see him in one piece. She thanks Rio for giving her hope because before he came, she gave up on life and was gonna go through with the marriage. Rio tells her that he owes her a lot and that he will do anything to make her happy. As they decide on their next destination, the mountains around them are all struck with different colors of lightning simultaneously. Aisha quickly realizes that these are signs of summoning and asks Rio to help them while she takes care of Celia. Soon after, Rio finds these summons captured by goons and rescues them. One of these summons turns out to be his childhood love, Miharu, which leaves the man in utter shock. Many years ago, Haruto and Miharu used to be best friends, but when Haruto's parents divorced, he had to leave town. Miharu was extremely sad about it, so they promised to marry in the future so they wouldn't have to be apart. After years of no contact, Haruto worked really hard and enrolled in the university where Miharu also studied so he could meet her again. On his first day, he saw Miharu waiting by the gate and tried approaching her, but he stopped when he saw another boy named Takahisa join her. Soon after, another shoddy named Satsuki joined them, and she accused him of leaving him behind so he could diddle with Miharu alone. Later, the group joined Aki and Masato and decided to have a party. Just then, a magic circle appeared beneath their feet, and they were all teleported into a different world. At present, Aisha immediately senses the summons and begs Ryo to help them. Miharu finds herself stranded with Aki and Masato, and before she can process what happened, a giant berserker appears behind them. Meanwhile, Ryo is heading towards their location and stops when he sees some lingering effects of spatial magic. He also spots Miharu's cell phone, which confuses him further. In a nearby slave camp, Aki and Masato are locked up in a cage, and an ugly Ankh takes Miharu away to explore her cave of wonders. As Ryo flies closer, he sees the camp from a distance and decides to investigate on foot. When he approaches the guards, they signal his arrival, and all the cages are covered to avoid suspicion. Ryo shows them the cell phone and says he's looking for its owner, but the Ankh tells him off. Noticing dozens of guards in the area, Ryo realizes that starting a fight right now is not wise, so he decides to leave peacefully. But then he hears Aki screaming for help, and it catches his attention because she's speaking Japanese as opposed to the native language of this world. He tells the ugly Ankh that he's in fact looking for the people he's captured, but the man orders his men to end Ryo before he causes too much trouble. Before the fight starts, Ryo tries to capture the leader for negotiations, but the guards stop him. With no other options, he takes out his twin blades and starts dropping them one after the other. One of them can use magic and throws fireballs at him, but Ryo uses the smoke to his advantage and takes him out as well. The ugly man wets himself upon seeing his power, and Ryo demands that he let everyone go, or he will take out his remaining men as well. After Aki and Masato are released, they are shocked to learn that he can speak Japanese, so they tell him that one of them is locked up in the wagon. Ryo approaches the wagon and breaks the lock, only to get shocked when he sees Miharu inside. Keeping his identity hidden, he takes them out of the camp and telepathically tells Aisha that he saved all the summons. Miharu then takes a moment to thank Ryo for saving their lives, but Ryo tells her not to worry about it. She then introduces herself and asks him what his name is, and Ryo tells her he's going by the name Haruto nowadays, but he doesn't have a last name. Hearing the name, Miharu and Aki both freeze in the moment, but before Aki can say something, Miharu politely tells her to zip it. Ryo then remembers that Haruto had a half-younger sister named Aki who left with his mother, and they never saw each other again. Looking at her face, he realizes she is the same Aki because she also has purple hair and a similar face. Aki then asks him why he's staring at her, and he says he was just wondering why they reacted weirdly to his name. Just then, Masato asks why he doesn't have a last name before he introduces himself as Aki's stepbrother, which makes Ryo realize that Haruto's mother must have married Masato's father after the divorce. Ryo then promises to answer Masato's question later because they must find a shelter before the sun goes down, or zombies will start spawning. He then guides them to a nearby forest and uses magic to summon the portable house that Dominic built for him. While the others are shocked at seeing magic for the first time, Aisha suddenly drops from the sky, carrying Celia, who immediately goes to check up on him. He then introduces Miharu and the others to Celia in her own language, but when the language barrier makes things awkward, Aisha suddenly kisses Celia's forehead. She then goes on to kiss the forehead of Miharu, and this allows them to understand each other's language. Ryo asks him when she learned to do that, and she says it is because he can speak both languages. She then says she's hungry, so Ryo invites all of them inside the house. That night, while the girls enjoy a warm bath, Celia tells Miharu and Aki everything about Ryo, along with the fact that Aisha is a spirit. Meanwhile, Masato learns from Ryo that they have been teleported to a different world, like a fantasy role-playing game, except there is no respawn button here. This makes him realize they all would have died if he hadn't shown up to rescue them, which makes him feel horrible. Just then, the girls step out of the bath and thank Ryo, and when he turns around, he sees Celia wearing a tracksuit instead of her usual outfit. She happily explains she borrowed them from Aki because she wanted to get out of her wedding dress, and also mentions how easy it is to move in these clothes. Ryo realizes they don't have any clothes since they just came here, so when he suggests they go shopping tomorrow, Miharu says they don't have the money for it. He tells them not to worry about money and asks Celia if they should go to the city of Amand, and she immediately says yes because she also wants to sell her wedding dress for some quick cash. He again reminds them that he'll be their sugar daddy before diverting their attention to the food he's prepared for them. After dinner, Ryo learns that Miharu and the others were caught by a summoning circle, so when Miharu asks if there is a way for them to return, he says he doesn't know the answer to that, Celia then mentions how she saw 6 pillars of light when they were summoned, and it leads her to believe it has something to do with the 6 wise gods. Ryo then explains a legend that says that 1,000 years after the Holy War, 6 Infinity Stones will emerge in the world, which will bring forth 6 heroes who will lead all humanity. However, he cannot understand why the plot gods chose these 3 idiots as part of the Holy 6. Miharu then mentions that she was with 2 other friends, Satsuki and Takahisa, and she is worried they might be in some danger. Just then, Aisha gets tired and forces Ryo to take her to bed so she can replenish her powers, and it makes Celia freak out because she had called dibs on his sausage. Aisha claims it is routine for Haruto to sleep with her, and Celia demands an explanation from him. Ryo then explains that he is the power source behind Aisha's magical energy, but Celia still feels a little jealous that Aisha gets to sleep with him. Hearing this, Aisha decides to sleep with Miharu instead, explaining that although she prefers Ryo, Miharu also processes a tremendous amount of magical energy. Although it comes as a shock to them, Ryo suggests they discuss it later. He then tells Aki and Masato to share a room, and they agree to it because they're siblings. Ryo then guides Celia to her room, but she secretly wishes he visits her at night to have her snack. Ryo then returns to his room and wonders how Miharu would react if he told her he had all the memories of Haruto. He then tells himself that Haruto is in the past, and he is Ryo, whose only goal is to slay the man who flatlined his mother. Just then, he hears a knock on the door and sees Celia, who says she wanted to chat with him. He invites her in and serves her tea, which reminds Celia of her time at the academy. She then asks him how he has been doing ever since he left her, and where he met Aisha. But more importantly, she wants to know about his past life, so he asks her to calm down because he can only answer one question at a time. He starts by telling her about his past life, explaining that he has memories of another version of himself, and that version existed in the same world where Miharu and the others came from. He tells her he got these memories a few moments before the first time she met him in the slums, and in that past life, he went by the name Haruto. He says he was an adult in that world before he died, and Celia finally understands why he was so mature from the get-go. She then thanks him wholeheartedly for basically rescuing her from that marriage, but at the same time, she is worried sick about her father. She wants to somehow let him know she is safe, so Ryo suggests she write him a letter. Meanwhile, in the palace, Race discusses the kidnapping of Celia with Charles, but Charles is sure the kidnapper was incinerated by Charles. However, Celia is nowhere to be seen, and he believes she was taken by someone else. Charles says he's closed all borders and will find her in no time, but Race knows Ryo and Aisha must have used magic to conceal their presence. Charles also mentions that a hero was summoned into the kingdom, and his father has taken him into custody. Race asks if they have any more sacred stones in their possession, and Charles says one is with Princess Flora, and she might already be welcoming the hero. He worries about the traitors aligning with the kingdom of Galark, and Race reminds him that Galark's governor, Lissalat, was also present at the wedding. Charles brushes her off as a twitch thought, but Race knows she's far more than that and would become a big hurdle if she's not dealt with soon. Meanwhile, in Beltrum, another summon is getting the son-in-law treatment by everyone because they think he's the legendary hero from the prophecy. Being surrounded by all the royalty, he recalls how he was gunning to redo of Healer Episode 2 when he was suddenly summoned into this world. He started panicking until Flora and Duke Gustav introduced themselves and asked if he was a hero. Flora explained to him the whole concept of the 6 Infinity Stones left by the 6 wise gods, which will summon 6 heroes. The guy was confused at first, but when he saw that he had magically summoned a katana with him, Flora told him it was proof of his status as a hero. Having read a million other world mangas, he smirked and decided to use this opportunity to his advantage. Flora then asked her what his name was, and he proudly introduced himself as Sakata. At present, he tells Flora that he has a whole life back home and would like to return, but Gustav politely asks him to listen to his proposition first. The next day, as Ryo takes Celia and Miharu shopping, he asks Aki and Masato not to leave the protective barrier of the house. Aisha then carries Celia and flies away, so Ryo asks Miharu if she's comfortable flying with him. When she says she is, he carries her in his arms and takes a flight, which makes her blush. He asks her if she is scared, but she says she's fine as long as he holds her tightly. Meanwhile, Celia asks Aisha how much she knows about Ryo, and Aisha says she has all of his memories downloaded into her. Hearing this makes Celia sad, and she admits she feels a little lonely knowing that she only knows a few things about Ryo as opposed to her. Aisha then tells her that Ryo has started to rely on other people, and it's all thanks to Celia, who treated him with kindness when no one else did. Once they reach the city, Rio hands them magical ornaments that allow them to change their appearance so no one recognizes them. He takes them to the Rika Merchant Guild, where the receptionist Chloe greets them. Rio asks her to help the ladies while he runs some errands around town. As they try on different clothes, Rio goes around town asking about their friends Takahisa and Satsuki, but he gets no leads. When he returns to the guild, he finds Miharu holding a pair of plot armor, and it makes them both embarrassed. He decides to leave again, but Miharu asks him to try on a new outfit, which really suits him. Meanwhile, Liselot learns that the borders will remain closed for a while because Beltrum doesn't want anyone to know what happened at the wedding. Liselot is anxious because she can't run a business here, but her maid Aria advises her to consider this a vacation. They discuss the kidnapping of Celia, and Liselot realizes Aria must be worried because she and Celia used to be friends in the academy. She asks her for potential suspects, and Aria believes someone from Duke Arbor's family must have done it. Lisold also learns about the hero summons, and it gets her hyped because one must have summoned in Galark as well. Later, Rio and the others return to his house, and they all try on new costumes that help them blend in with this world's medieval fashion. Later, he tells them he couldn't find their friends, but he suspects they must have been summoned as heroes, while the three of them just got caught up in the circle by accident. Aki wants to find them fast, but Rio suggests they get used to this world's customs first because they can't always rely on Aisha. The next day, Rio has to leave for some work, and everyone tells him to be safe out there, as if he needs any more plot armor. He tells Aisha to take care of everyone before using teleportation magic, leaving them in shock. He then arrives at the Village of Spirits, and Latifah immediately runs into his arms in excitement. Soon after, Orphea, Alma, and Sarah greet him as well, and Alma mentions how Sarah was extra excited to see him, which embarrasses her. Rio says he's happy to see them, but he's come here to talk to the elders, so they immediately arrange a meeting in which Rio discusses the 6 hero summons. When they ask him how he's so sure about these otherworldly summons, Rio tells them he actually rescued 2 girls and a boy who were summoned from a different world. He thinks these 3 are not heroes, but there were 2 other friends with them who he suspects are the true heroes. While those 2 were summoned by the sacred stones, these 3 might have been just caught up in lingering magic. Seldora asks him how he bypassed the language barrier with these people, and Rio tells him he knows their language because he has lived in their world in his past life. He promises to tell them the full story some other time, but for now, he wants to know if they can offer protection to the 3 summons and 1 additional person he rescued for a short time. Seldora wants to know more about it, so he tells them he wants to go around the country looking for clues to send them back to their worlds, and it's hard for him to protect them in that case. Dominic asks him about this additional person he mentioned, and he says it's his teacher, who was forced into a marriage against her will. When he says he kidnapped her on the wedding day, all the girls in the room start blushing. Dominic bursts into laughter because Rio has balls bigger than Jupiter and promises to look after all of them. Ursula and Seldora also agree to it, though they make him promise that his friends will not reveal the location of their village to anyone else. That night, Rio explains to Latifah that he had no choice but to talk about his past life to the elders, and this makes her sad because she has kept her own past a secret until now. Rio assures her she doesn't have to tell anyone, but when she learns Rio also told those summons about his life in Japan, she feels bad because it was supposed to be their secret. Rio finds her reactions adorable and assures her that no matter what happens, she will always be special to him. He asks her if she remembers the girl he was in love with back in Japan and his younger sister, who was separated from him after the divorce. Latifah says she remembers, so Rio tells her that the 2 girls he rescued are his crush Miharu and his half-sister Aki, but they don't know he's the same Haruto yet. He explains that they are already feeling lost in this world, and he doesn't want to give them more emotional strain, but most importantly, he is Rio in this world. This is why he doesn't want them to know about it, and asks Latifah to keep it a secret. Latifah realizes from his tone that he wants to tell them on his own and tries to encourage him, but he gently tells him he can't do that right now. She feels bad that he has to hide his feelings, but he hugs her and assures her everything will be okay. The next day, Rio says goodbye to Latifah and the others, promising to return soon. Meanwhile, in Beltrum, Liselot gives a detailed report about the recent events to King Francois, and he tells her they have also summoned a hero named Sakata. He wants the hero of Beltrum and Galark to meet, so he asks her to deliver this message to their king. Liselot suspects she has heard the name Sakata before, but can't completely wrap her head around it. She asks the king to name the summon of Beltrum, and he tells her it's Satsuki, and they suspect both Sakata and Satsuki might come from the same world, given the nature of their names. Later, Princess Charlotte takes Celia to Satsuki's room, and Celia is shocked to see her. The next day, before dawn, Reis gathers a small group of zombies and sends them into the forest to hunt for anyone with a strong magical prowess. After the sunrise, Celia helps Masato get familiar with this world's language, and he slowly gets the hang of it. Aisha, on the other hand, is replenishing her energy, while Aki and Miharu are preparing lunch in the kitchen. Aki then expresses her worries about their living situation, mentioning how she has left his whole life behind, and she doesn't even know if Satsuki and Takahisa are safe or not. Miharu hugs her to give her comfort, admitting that she is worried too, but meeting Ryo and Celia has helped her calm down. Aki questions if she even wants to go back, and she says Ryo is working really hard for them, so they will eventually make it back. Aki asks her what she thinks of Ryo, mentioning how she's been acting so calm and casual around him from the get-go. Miharu says Ryo is kind and gentle, but he also reminds her of Haruto. However, Aki gets upset upon hearing Haruto's name and says it's disrespectful to compare the two, not knowing that they are practically the same person. She then steps outside to cool off and regrets her words, but Miharu joins her soon after. Just then, Miharu notices some zombies standing at the edge of the barrier, and they casually break through it. Before they can attack, Aisha wakes up and starts fighting them, but when she finds herself overwhelmed, Celia shows up to assist her using her own magic. Just then, Ryo returns and takes care of the stronger monster, but before dying, it says something to him that shocks him. That evening, the majority of the zombies return with successful hunts, and Reis takes note of the 3 missing zombies. Understanding that he's dealing with a strong foe, he decides to put his plan in motion immediately. Later, Ryo brings the whole squad to the Village of Spirits, and Latifah comes running into his arms as usual. Soon after, Sarah and the other girls join them and bow down to Aisha, making Masato wonder if she's a big deal around her. Ryo then explains that Aisha is a high-level spirit in a human form, and she is considered divine in this village. Celia then turns to Latifah with sparkling eyes and tells her Ryo told her all about his sister. She finds her tail really cute and asks if she can touch it, and Latifah tells her she can, making them wonder if she has a furry kink. Latifah then starts speaking in Japanese, much to their shock, and she casually tells them she also has memories of her past life, just like Ryo. Ryo asks if she is sure about this, and she says she's already told everyone in the village because she has come to terms with her past. As everyone introduces themselves, Miharu goes last, and Latifah realizes she's the girl Haruto grew up loving. Sarah then takes them to the village, where Aki notes that people are hiding from them. When she wonders why, Masato tells her it's because her face should come with a warning label. Ryo then explains that the villagers are not used to seeing humans, which is why they are shy. Just then, a bunny girl approaches Miharu and whispers in Latifah's ear that she likes Miharu's dress. In response, Miharu tells her she likes her bunny ears, and the girl happily returns to her mother. Soon after, the villagers warm up to Masato and Aki and even throw them a welcoming party that evening. The elders join them too, and after paying respects to Aisha, they welcome Miharu and the others. Right then, Dreas appears as well and gives them a warm welcome. With that, the feast begins, and everyone enjoys good food. Amid all the fun, Aki notices how Ryo is very popular, and everyone seems to like him, so Latifah tells her she is proud to call him her big brother. Aki quietly admits that she is jealous and wishes she could see her big brother Haruto one day. Afterward, they all arrive at Latifah's house, and she tells them she has an open-air bath in here. Masato gets excited to use it, but Aki challenges her to a game of rock, paper, scissors, which he loses. So while the girls relax in the bath, he has to sit on the balcony and take it like a man. Back in the bath, Aki looks at the stars and comments that they look beautiful. She wonders if they would ever return home, and Miharu assures her they will. Outside, Masato asks Ryo how he's so strong, and he says it's because he has to protect his loved ones. Hearing this pumps up Masato, and he vows to become strong so he can protect Aki. The next day, Celia sees Ryo practicing his sword strokes and wishes he practiced his strokes on her kitty as well. He notices her and asks why she woke up so early, and she says it's because she slept well in such a peaceful place. As they sit under a tree, he apologizes for forgetting about her worries and suggests they send a letter to her dad to let him know she's safe. Celia worries that he's putting his own priorities aside by helping others so much, and she wants to make things easier for him. He admits he has some things to take care of, but assures Celia that she is not in his way and that he wanted to save her more than anything. He adds that sending Miharu and the others home is also his priority, so after he delivers Celia's letter, he will head to Rodania to gather more info on the heroes. Celia tells him he can rely on her, and she will help him because she is the mage with the most amount of magic in all of Beltrum. Soon after that, they prepare to leave the village, and Sora assures her she will take care of the others in their absence. Miharu then shyly hands Rio a basket of food she's prepared herself and thanks him for going so far for her sake. Rio tells her not to worry about it, but she promises to repay him with moral and oral support when he returns. Ophelia and Alma start teasing Miharu for acting like a housewife, which makes her blush. After they fly away, she prays to the anime gods to give them plot armor. Meanwhile, in Beltrum, Liselot meets Sakata to invite him to a meeting with Satsuki, but the man hasn't heard a word she said because she looks too cute. He thinks about how he's already surrounded by cute shawties like Flora and Roanna, but Liselot just hits him differently. He then asks Liselot if she will be there at the meeting, and when she says yes, he agrees to go. That night, Aisha informs Rio that they have reached Beltrum, and Celia becomes happy seeing the place she grew up in again. Once they reach, Rio uses invisibility magic to sneak into the garden, and Celia opens a secret entrance that leads up downstairs. As soon as they enter, Celia's father, Roland, detects their magic and goes to check up. He suspects it must be Celia, but before he can see her, she leaves a letter on his desk and leaves. Once he reads the letter, he immediately runs out to catch a glimpse of her, but she's already gone by then. Celia thanks Rio for making it happen, and he promises that the next time they come here, he will make sure she sees them in person. Soon after, Liselot arrives at the Galark port, where she sees a large dragon roaming the skies. She is welcomed by Baronet Boxa, and Sakata arrives soon after and asks her if she met Beltrum's hero. Liselot confirms that she invited Satsuki to the meeting before asking what he's doing here, and Sakata reveals that he is accompanying Gustava, who has some business here. Their attention then diverts to the dragon, and they decide to hold a meeting to discuss how to deal with it. Meanwhile, Rio and Celia are roaming in Beltrum under a disguise when they suddenly notice that Aisha is no longer with them. They backtrack and find her munching on food, and Rio asks how she got the money. The shopkeeper tells him that a random guy is paying for her food because he got paid a huge sum of money for preparing a hero ship. Rio asks the man if he knows anything more about it and learns that all the summoned heroes are having a meeting in Galark. That night, Liselot tells Sakata that the dragon is so strong that no one can beat him, so if push comes to shove, they will have to evacuate the city. He asks her what she will do in this situation, and she says she will return to her city, Amand, because she is the governor there. Sakata worries it will be dangerous to fly with a dragon roaming around, so she decides to go by land. Once again, Sakata worries she and her maids alone aren't enough, but she assures him they're all well trained. Even after Roanna asks him not to meddle in Liselot's affairs, Sakata decides to go with her to Amand, claiming it's his duty as the hero, but in reality he just wants to clap her. Roanna tries to stop him, but Gustava reminds her that Sakata is the hero and they should not question his decision. Liselot is worried that if something happens to him, it will strain relations between their nations, but Gustava assures her no responsibility falls on them regarding Sakata's safety. With that, Sakata produces his sword and tries acting cool, but Liselot is clearly not impressed by his zero riz game. The next day, Liselot is about to leave when a guard recognizes her maid, Aria. He introduces himself as Raymond and mentions how he has known Aria from the time her family was caught in a tragic incident. Soon after, Gustava arrives and tells them it's time to leave. As they begin their journey, Sakata joins them in their carriage, but Liselot is so bored by his nonsense that she asks Flora to speak to her about herself. Just then, Aria signals for the carriages to stop and activate defensive measures because she has spotted monsters nearby. It turns out to be a band of goblins that starts throwing rocks at them, so Aria and Raymond deploy a magic shield to protect everyone. Just within a few minutes, hundreds of goblins charge at them all at once, and Aria strictly instructs Liselot to stay inside. She then goes on the front line to cast offensive magic spells and single-handedly intimidate the whole army of goblins. Liselot's other maids follow her lead and cover from all four sides, but Reyes, the mastermind behind this attack, watches from above. Inside the carriage, Sakata starts losing his mind because he cannot see what's going on outside, and even when Flora tries to console him, he rudely shuts her off. To make her feel better, Liselot offers to hold her hand, which makes Sakata feel jealous. He grabs Roanna's hand and promises to protect her to assert his dominance, but when a giant rock falls on top of their carriage, he decides to step out and take matters into his own hands. Since he's opened the carriage's safety mechanism, Flora asks Liselot if they should step out too, but Liselot says she will go first. She then steps out and activates a magic shield, only to see that they are under heavy artillery. Since Roanna knows how to cast the barrier as well, she asks him to protect Flora while she heals the wounded, leaving Sakata in panic. While she's healing, Aria appears and informs her that the goblins are pushing them back from all 4 sides. Although she has thinned their numbers up front, the rear might still be weak, so she's heading there to offer support. Once she gets there, she tells Raymond to shift his men up front and watch flanks as she alone can take care of the rear. Just then, they all sense a strong presence in the area, and a giant, intimidating Minotaur appears as the final boss. While Licelot and the others watch from the back, another Minotaur appears close to their carriage, and Aria is stuck fighting 2 of them at once. The second one flings their carriage away and is about to yeet Flora into the afterlife. But Licelot reacts at the last second and pushes her away. The Minotaur prepares to attack them again, but someone suddenly appears and chops off its arm. Then, in a quick flash, the monster is bested, and once the dust settles, Rio cements himself as the biggest aura farmer this world has ever seen. Flora realizes she was once saved by Rio at the academy too, but she can't recognize him because of his disguise. When the other Minotaur attacks them, Rio blocks its swing with his sword and sends it flying, leaving everyone shocked because Minotaurs are supposed to be legendary monsters. Just then, a third Minotaur appears, and Rio finishes it faster than your Sydney Sweeney gooning sessions. The goblins are so scared that they run away, and all the knights celebrate their win. As the others join Rio, he spots Flora in the background eyeing him like he's her favorite K-pop idol. Rio also wonders if she's Princess Flora because he never imagined seeing her in a place like this. Licelot immediately bows in respect and thanks him for saving them. She then introduces Flora and Gustav to Rio, but she notices that Flora is staring at him with awe. Rio asks if he did something wrong, but Flora says he didn't and asks if they have met before. Rio is in disguise, so he tells her he has never seen her before, and that makes her visibly sad. Gustav asks him if he's a noble from a different land, but he says he's a humble wanderer traveling from place to train in swordsmanship. Gustav then admits he looks too normal for someone who's the final boss of swordsmanship. When Licelot's maids join them, Chloe immediately recognizes his alias Haruto because she was the one who attended to him when he was shopping in Amand. As they offer their gratitude, Sakata also joins and introduces himself as the hero of Beltrum. Rio doesn't want any trouble, so he bows in respect and says it's an honor to be in his presence. He also says he feels nervous around them, but Licelot reminds him that he took down 3 Minotaurs alone, so he shouldn't act so reserved around them. Sakata then tells Flora and Rona that it's time to go, but when Flora tries to get a word with Rio, Sakata tells her to hurry up. Rio then decides to help them move by repairing the broken carriage, and Aria is surprised because it seems beyond repair to her. Before coming here, he was with Celia and Aisha and saw the fighting from above. Celia told him that Aria was her friend from the academy, so when she found herself surrounded by Minotaurs, Rio decided to help her. At present, he starts repairing the carriage, and Licelot notices that he is able to control the wind with his sword. She believes it's an ancient enchanted artifact, and Rio confirms this, although he is using spirit arts and masking them using the sword. Meanwhile, as the maids serve drinks, Aria feels a little envious of Chloe because she attended someone as strong as Rio. She starts teasing Chloe for having gooner thoughts about Rio, but when Natalie asks her not to tease her, Aria calls her a late-blooming virgin. Just then, Licelot arrives and asks them to serve the drinks. Soon after, Aria brings the news that the carriage is fully repaired, and a young, enthusiastic maid offers Rio a fruit juice mixed with her ketchup to raise him up. When he asks who she is, she introduces herself as Cosette, one of Licelot's lady-in-waiting. After she leaves, Rio tells Licelot that all of her girls are modest, but she laughs because they've all got their OnlyFans pages. In the front, Gustav and the knights wonder how they will remove the Minotaur's sword that's blocking the road. That's when Sakata appears and shows them that, although he's more annoying than your ex, he still has some tricks up his sleeve. As everyone cheers for him, Rio notices that Sakata has tremendous magical prowess. With that, the carriage starts moving again, and they all force Rio to join them. Rio is hesitant because he's not a noble, but Gustav tells him not to be so shy because he saved all of them. Licelot adds that she'd like to show him a little more than her gratitude when they arrive in Amand, but Rio tells him he doesn't deserve anything more. Sakata seconds him, sternly saying that a noble lady like her shouldn't bow to a commoner like Rio. Meanwhile, in the Spirits Village, Latifah is teaching Miharu and the others about the culture and language of this world so they can fit in better. Just then, a beast boy enters the class and asks Masato if he wants to go fishing, and he immediately skittles with them. Aki is worried he will miss out on spirit arts training, but Latifah tells them that since he'll be using magic artifacts with the boys, that will cover his spirit arts training. Soon after, Miharu and Aki go out and practice basic magic spells under Orphea's guidance. Aki feels let down because Miharu is doing much better than her, and it makes her question her talent. After the training, Orphea suggests they have some tea, but Aki says she wants to go on a walk to clear her head. On her stroll, she sees some young beast people having a picnic, and it reminds her of the time she went on a picnic with Haruto and Miharu. She had a lot of fun that day, and she promised they would all stay together forever. Later, when Haruto had to leave with his dad, she begged him not to go, but Aki had no choice. While she's lost in thought, Latifah passes by and asks her what she's doing here. She says he was watching the little devils play, but when she looks up, she realizes they're already gone, and she was just standing there like a moron. Latifah then takes her back home for dinner, but everyone is worried because Masato and the boys have still not returned. To distract their minds, Aki asks them how it was like when they first met Ryo, and Orphea gets embarrassed because she treated him so rudely. Sarah then explains that they met Ryo in the forest and thought he had kidnapped Latifah, so they all restrained him and beat him up. However, once the misunderstanding was cleared, they brought him here and put him to bed. Orphea mentions how he was mumbling in his sleep, and when Latifah asks what he was saying, she tells them he was saying Miharu's name. The room suddenly goes silent, and before they can wonder what it means, Masato returns with a big catch for dinner. Later, Orphea and the others go to Miharu's room to talk about Aki, while Latifah and Aki are chilling in the bath. Aki asks her what she did before she met Ryo, and Latifah reveals she was a slave to a noble in Beltrum. Aki feels sad and apologizes for making her recall her horrible past, but she says it makes her happy because that's how she met Ryo. She says she owes a lot to him, and that's why she wants to be useful to him. Aki shares the sentiment, revealing that she was betrayed when she lost her brother, but then her mom married again, and she got 2 new brothers. However, she believes she is a terrible sister because she always scolds Masato, but Latifah comforts her and offers to be her best friend. The next day, everyone watches Aki leave for practice early, and when she returns, Orphea greets her wearing Miharu's school uniform. Latifah says she wants to try too, but Sarah reminds her that she's barely 4 feet and it won't fit her. Orphea then says she wanted to dress up for a special occasion, and when Aki asks what the occasion is, Miharu brings forth her favorite apple pie. Eating it immediately lifts her mood, and later she makes Latifah wear her uniform, which fits her perfectly. Meanwhile, in the Proxia Empire, Emperor Nidol and Commander Lucius discuss the new developments in the Beltrum Kingdom. Just then, Race shows up and explains that his plan has been halted because a strong foe defeated 3 of his Minotaurs. To keep that foe away, he asks Lucius's help in kidnapping Princess Flora. The next day in Galark, Liselot asks Ryo to stay for a day, and she'll send someone for him tomorrow. Later, he meets up with Celia and Aisha and explains to them that they will be staying here for a few days under Liselot's care. Celia worries Ryo will recognize her, but Ryo assures her it will be fine. However, he adds that the nobles of Beltrum are here too, mainly Duke Gustave, Princess Flora, and Roana. Celia is surprised that Flora didn't recognize him despite spending years in the same class, and Ryo adds that Flora thinks something is off but can't quite figure it out. He still believes they will be fine, but when Celia says it's best if they just skedaddle, he says he wants to establish a good connection with Liselot, as it will help them locate the hero of Galark. Celia understands his mission and advises him to keep his guard up because Liselot may look cute, but she's as sharp as a blade. Ryo then tells her he is supposed to visit Liselot at her home, so he wants Celia to teach him noble etiquette. Meanwhile, at Liselot's place, Gustave discusses how Ryo, albeit a maid, was really strong and useful during the ambush. She questions whether the hero alone would have been strong enough to deal with the situation, and Gustave says Sakata lacks the combat experience. Still, he had enough strength to lift the Minotaur's sword, and Liselot believes he got the strength from his divine arms. Such powers only lie within the heroes, and the fact that he's so strong without training raises many questions. Despite his powers, Gustave still doesn't want to send the hero into any danger, so he decides to train him in mock battles with the knights. Liselot believes he might develop trauma after his first battle, but Gustave tells her not to worry, as he will turn it into a positive experience through training. He then admits that they all would have been slaughtered if Ryo hadn't shown up, and they still can't believe he destroyed 3 Minotaurs so quickly. They believe there is far more to him than what meets the eye, and Liselot is sure Ryo is hiding his true identity. They want to know more about him, so Celia asks Gustave to be here tomorrow when Ryo visits. Gustave then mentions he's heard reports that a lot of adventurers have gone missing, and it makes him wonder what's going on behind the curtains. Meanwhile, Stuart and Alphone grab some hose from the street to get some action, but they are still frustrated that they were overshadowed when Rio saved them all earlier. Earlier, Sakata made fun of them for running away, so they plan to take out their anger on their side chicks. Once they get to the hotel, they learn that their preferred room is booked by someone else, and it happens to be by Rio. While Rio is having dinner with the girls, they hear a commotion outside, and Rio steps outside to see Stuart and Alphonse making a fuss. He recognizes them as the boys who bullied him in the academy, but still humbly asks if he can help them. They say they want to use this room, so he invites them in and asks Celia and Aisha to stay close. When they are about to leave, Alphonse invites the girls to join their sausage party, but Rio politely refuses. This hurts Alphonse's ego, and he starts disrespecting Rio by calling him a filthy commoner. When Rio roasts him using polite words, Alphonse loses his cool and starts swaying, only to find himself restrained on the carpet. When Stuart attacks him too, Rio has no choice but to knock them out. He then asks the waiter to inform the authorities, and the news reaches Liselat, who is extremely disappointed because she wanted Rio to have a good time here. Gustave is raging because Stuart is his son and promises to discipline that fool. Later, he meets them both and gives them a good scolding, even suggesting that he disinherit his own son. Alphonse believes Gustave is going too far, but the man stays firm and tells them both to prove themselves on their next mission. They have to go with other knights to clear out the forest, and if they fail, they will both face severe consequences. He also orders them to apologize to Haruto, and they reluctantly agree. The next day, Rio apologizes to Celia for what happened last night, but Celia says she is fine. He suggests she stay at the stone house with Aisha for a few days, but she insists on staying by his side. She then starts to blush and panics, explaining that she is just concerned about him and nothing more. Soon after, Liselat arrives, so he asks Celia and Aisha to wait in the other room. After apologizing for the incident, she invites him and the girls for lunch, but Rio says he will come alone. Later, Gustave takes responsibility for the boys' actions, and then brings them into the room so they can apologize to him in person. Afterward, they join Flora and Sakata for lunch, and they serve a special cheese risotto that Sakata asked them to make. They all immediately fall in love with the dish, and Rio realizes Liselat must have knowledge about his world to create such dishes. They then ask Rio about his travels, and he says he's been on the road for 6 years. Flora asks him what made him want to travel, and he says he is in search of someone related to his parents. Gustave hopes that once he is done traveling, he will choose to stay permanently in Beltrum and promises to grant him favorable terms. When Liselat gives him the same offer for her nation, Sakata jokingly says Rio is more popular than the hero, but Rio humbly says he is nothing compared to them. Sakata starts tooting his own horn, stating that no one can ever match a hero's capability, which reminds Rio that Gelark has their own hero. Liselat announces that their hero is a woman who goes by the name Satsuki, and Rio immediately realizes she's the girl Miharu and the others got separated from. Gustave adds that Sakata will also be present at the meeting alongside Satsuki, and there is a third hero from the Centostella Kingdom who will also attend. Rio feels accomplished because now he knows where Satsuki is and can bring good news to Miharu. Meanwhile, Alphonse is on his patrol mission assigned to him by Gustave, and while they are waiting for monsters to show up, Lucius steps forward and proudly declares that he's already taken care of everything. Elsewhere, Miharu is practicing spirit arts, but her mind keeps drifting off to thoughts of Rio. She also remembers Orphan telling her that Rio was saying her name in his sleep, and it gives her a little hope that her Haruto might be here as well. She then clears her head and starts practicing again, and soon after, she manages to create water from thin air. Orphan and the others witness this and join her, praising her for her hard work. When they ask why she's working extra, she says she enjoys it, but the main reason is that while she's napping in soft pillows, Rio is putting himself in danger for her sake. She doesn't want to burden him more than she already has, so she is trying to take matters into her own hands by becoming stronger. They are all surprised to see her learn so fast and conclude that it might have something to do with her connection with Aisha. Meanwhile, Aisha is on the balcony when Celia brings her tea. Upon tasting it, she says it's similar to the one Rio makes, and Celia reveals she's the one who taught him how to make tea. Celia also notices that Aisha seems distracted, so when she asks her about it, she brushes it off. In the forest, Lucius makes his appearance and addresses the knights while Race lurks in the background. Lucius immediately recognizes that these men are knights of Princess Flora, but since he doesn't know any of them personally, he wants to proceed with the plan. Alphonse tries to act all macho and challenges Lucius, which makes him more eager to fight. Race advises him not to be lethal against these men, reminding him that he needs them alive so he can turn them into dolls. When he pulls his sword out, the knights prepare to tackle him, but before they can even blink, he rushes into their ranks and knocks them out one after the other. Alfred sneaks into the back and tries to take Lucius out, but Lucius blocks his attacks and slams him against the tree trunk. As the remaining knights enchant their bodies with magic, their commander orders them to charge at once, but Lucius dodges them all easily without even using his weapon. After having some fun, he starts knocking down more men, and Alfred watches in terror because he knows they're about to lose. With only 4 knights standing, Lucius tells Alphonse that he will save him for last, which causes him to run like a little bicon. Lucius watches them run away with a smirk, but then he dashes forward and appears right in front of them. With everyone else down, Alphonse is the last man standing, so Lucius begins toying with him, but Alphonse tries to bribe him with money. Lucius stops for a second to soak in how stupid Alphonse is, but Alphonse thinks he's cooking with the bribe, right before Lucius gives him a knockout punch. That evening, Liselot and the others see Rio off, thanking him for giving them his precious time. Flora adds that she would like to meet him again and talk to him more some other time, and Rio agrees, though he worries she might be on to him. When Sakata mentions that they will be staying here for a few days anyway, Liselot offers to host a tea party and asks Rio if he will join. Rio says he will be honored to, and with that, he takes his leave. Later inside, Sakata notices that Flora has been acting weirdly and asks her what's wrong with her. Flora doesn't even realize that it's all over her face, so Sakata mentions how, ever since Rio showed up, her mind's been drifting elsewhere. Flora is clueless and asks Sakata why he feels this way, and he says he is only describing what he saw. He then mentions how Flora kept staring at Rio's face the whole time, and it makes her go red. Roana adds that since she's their nation's representative, Flora must be thinking of how to properly thank Rio for saving her life. Similar to Duke Gustav and Governor Liselot, Flora decides to go with Roana's story, so Sakata lets her off the hook because it actually makes sense in his mind. He then asks why everyone is drooling over Haruto as he's average, so Roana tells him it's because, unlike him, they are all average people. Sakata immediately buys her story, and she signals to Flora to keep praising him so he keeps his mouth shut. Meanwhile, Alphonse wakes up in the forest and is terrified to see zombies wearing knight uniforms. He then sees one of the knights turn into a zombie before his very eyes, and Race explains to him that he's modifying the human body to make them stronger. Lucius suggests he also turn Alphonse, but Race is worried it might not work on him. However, since he already has an army of zombies, Lucius encourages him to do it anyway. He then restrains Alphonse in place, and Race inserts a glowing crystal into his body, causing him immense pain and his eyes to change color. That night, Gustav learns that the search party has not returned, and it makes him wonder if they ran into a monster they couldn't handle. Meanwhile, Flora is in her room, wondering if what Sakata noticed about her was actually true or not. She tells herself that Rio cannot be the same person who saved her because they look very different, and she regrets how she never got the chance to thank him. Meanwhile, Liselot learns about the missing unit of knights, and Gustav reports that he does not know what happened to the men. Liselot suggests they send a search party, but he says it'll be wise to wait till sunrise because the knights might just return on their own. They recall how Rio and their forces took care of most of the monsters in the ambush, and only a handful of goblins escaped. However, they now think there are more dangerous monsters in the forest, so Celia decides to send Ria and the other maids to clear the forest. Gustav offers more of his knights, but she refuses because he has already taken a big hit. Gustav then suggests they take Rio along because he is an adventurer and super strong. Liselot agrees to take him, but suggests all the other forces remain in the city in case it is attacked. Meanwhile, Lucius and Race camp out in the forest while waiting for Alphonse to complete his transformation into a zombie. Lucius then asks Race to send these guys away because they're giving him a creepy vibe, but he says he was only admiring his creation. After he sends them away, they turn their attention to Alphonse, who has glowing eyes and a darker body. Race reveals Alphonse turned out to be a near-perfect doll, which is much stronger than the others but lacks logic. It also has some leftover memories of his past, but he is still a tool that will be discarded after it has lived its usefulness. Lucius then tosses him meat, and Alphonse chews it along with the bones as he vows to end them all. A while later, Aisha forces Rio out of bed and says she can sense a large group of monsters nearby. Meanwhile, at the west gate, the guards see the zombies coming and sound the alarm, alerting everyone to the approaching danger. Soon after, Celia wakes up and runs straight into Rio's arms, and he tells her that the city is under attack by monsters. Ryo believes this is another Minotaur attack, but since he doesn't have enough understanding of the situation, his first priority to get info first, Celia tells him not to worry about her because, although she's built like an OnlyFans model, she can use magic and fight well. As explosions echo in town, people come onto the streets to see what is going on. Ryo then suits up and flies up to see a large number of monsters who have already breached the front gate. However, the city guard has already been deployed to take care of them, and the adventurers have also gathered to defend their city. Just then, Aisha relays that she can sense another wave coming from the east, and it is led by a Minotaur who smashes open the gate. With both sides under attack, Ryo sees that the majority of the people are moving to the northern district, where Aisha and Celia are holding up. Ryo tells her to stay put because they are in the safest area, and when Aisha asks what he will do, he declares he'll help defend the eastern gate. Meanwhile, at the eastern gate, Chloe is helping the city guard deal with the pesky goblins, but she admits they will be toast if they don't receive backup soon. As large orcs enter the gate, she notices that most of the civilians have evacuated, so she prepares to go all out against the monsters. Just then, Ryo suddenly launches a powerful attack that wipes the entire front line, before telling Chloe that he will be helping them until the reinforcements arrive. Seeing the final boss on his side makes her relieved, so Ryo tells her he will charge in hopes that she will handle anyone who slips past him. As the orcs approach him again, he charges up his sword and uses wind magic to cast a powerful slash, which takes out a large wave of monsters. Meanwhile, Liselot is camped up in a tent, strategizing on how to defend the city. Just then, Natalie brings the news that a Minotaur and a large number of monsters were spotted near the eastern gate. Liselot gets worried and asks if they are already inside the city, and Natalie says she doesn't know the exact details. Since most of the troops are stationed at the western gate, Celia orders Natalie to take Cosette and whoever she can find to the eastern gate. As soon as she leaves, another maid informs Liselot that a swordsman has appeared to defend the city, and she immediately realizes it must be Ryo. Meanwhile, the troubling duo somehow sneaks into the city, and Race asks Lucius to wait for the signal and proceed with caution. As Ryo plays Fruit Ninja with the monsters, the knights watch in awe and ask Chloe who this guy is, and she tells them he's the main character of this show. They believe he alone is enough to deal with the monsters, but Chloe sternly tells them not to drop their guard because Ryo is just one man. Ryo then notices that the Minotaur and the zombies, who are the strongest among the army, are staying back for some reason, but he can't quite understand why. He asks Aisha if anything has changed in the city, but she says everything is going as planned so far. Soon after, Natalie and Cosette show up at the gate and ask Chloe if she needs help, but she casually tells them that Ryo is clowning on everyone single-handedly, even though he makes their cookies moist. The girls admit he'll run out of juice soon and prepare to switch places with him. Coincidentally, Ryo backs up and tells them he needs to head back to help his friends evacuate, but he can't leave until that Minotaur bites the dust. Since it is in the rear, Ryo decides to use a long-range wind attack, striking it in the heart and slaying it instantly. With another attack to blow the front line, he returns to the girls and asks them to take it from here. But the only thing Cosette wants to take right now is his V card. After he leaves, the fighting continues on both gates, and Aria is on the east, wondering why the larger monsters are not attacking. Just as she plans to push forward, the zombies and the Minotaurs start screaming, and their voices can be heard throughout the city. Race and Lucius hear the signal and turn to Alphonse, telling him that his role is essential for this plan to work. With that, the zombies Naruto run into the city, and Aria tells her knights to deal with them while she deals with the Minotaur. Inside the city, Ryo takes Celia and Aisha out, but he suddenly sees a zombie walking amongst the crowd with a hood on. As he rushes to strike it down, he notices more of the zombies walking amongst people and takes swift action to deal with them. Just then, Chloe comes running in to make sure her mother and her sister Myrel are okay, and thanks Ryo for saving her family. Ryo then asks her why she's not at the gate, and she says it's because some of the zombies slipped into the city, and she wanted to inform Liselot. As people gather in the northern palace, Sakata asks Gustav if monster attacks are the average Tuesday in this world. Gustav assures him that they will get this under control, and Stuart chuckles because the so-called hero seems scared. Outside, as Ryo arrives with his friends, a guard tells him Liselot asked for them to be sent to the palace immediately. In the meantime, Alphonse and Lucius sneak into the palace and locate the room where Princess Flora is. Lucius tells Alphonse to bring Flora in one piece, though he is free to clap anyone else who stands in his path. Just then, a guard hears them talking and asks them to come outside. As soon as Lucius steps outside, the guard meets his maker, Inside the room, Sakata hears some noise coming from the halls and asks the guard to check it out. As soon as they open the door, Alphonse rushes into the room with 3 other zombies, ready to cause chaos. Stuart and Raymond both enchant themselves with magic, and the latter steps forward to strike the zombie, only to be overpowered in an instant. With Stuart also overwhelmed, Sakata and the others back themselves into a corner, where Sakata summons his sword to defend himself. Before he can attack, Alphonse tells his minion to stand back and let him handle this one on his own. Alphonse then lunges forward and punches Sakata in the face, causing him to get knocked out. As Alphonse celebrates getting revenge, Gustave watches in horror because the monster is speaking his language. Alphonse then turns to Gustave and promises to give him a painful death, right before knocking him down. Stuart sees his father on the verge of death, but cannot do anything. Alphonse then throws Gustave on top of Stuart, and amidst all of that, Rona asks Flora to make a run for it. Flora does not want to leave her behind, but Rona urges her to go while she acts as a decoy. With the situation dire, Flora agrees to the plan and starts crawling towards the door. Once there, she hears a voice calling to her, and Rona pushes her out of the room, thinking it will save Flora. But unbeknownst to her, she has dropped Flora right into Lucius's hands, who immediately drags her away. Meanwhile, as Rio is heading to the palace, Aisha informs him that monsters have already invaded the building. Just then, Liselot arrives and thanks him for all his help, so Rio asks her if she knows about the monsters inside. Liselot says the mansion is supposed to be fully clear, but it worries her because Flora and the others are inside. Meanwhile, Lucius keeps dragging Flora and finally tells her she has been kidnapped. While he is toying with her, Race arrives and informs her that they have to hurry because a strong spirit has just come to the palace. Lucius then carries Flora and tells her to stay quiet if she wants to live before zooming out of there. Meanwhile, everyone in the room has had enough, except for Rona, who is still somehow fighting the zombies all by herself. However, her attacks don't even scrape the surface, which terrifies her. As Alphonse walks towards her, Raymond tries to ambush him, but is flung like a fly. Just then, Sakata wakes up, enraged at getting knocked out, and decides to lock in. He swiftly eliminates one of the zombies and turns his attention to Alphonse. But before he can fight him, he sees 2 zombies trying to flatline Rana. He quickly jumps in the air and chops their heads off, demonstrating that although he's a Kringlord, he still has the final boss aura. With all 3 zombies down, he turns his attention to Alphonse and vows to teach him a lesson. Outside, as Rio and the others settle in, water comes rushing out of the window, and Sakata is shocked by his own power. This allows Alphonse to run away, but when Sakata tries to go after him, Race knocks him out from behind. Race then tells Alphonse to go outside, where someone interesting is waiting for him. Afterward, he creates a portal to summon more zombies that flood out of the mansion and cause panic in the area. Rio quickly rushes and takes them all out, but then he sees Lucius trying to run away with Flora. Lucius jokingly tells them not to mind him, but as soon as Rio hears his voice, he is taken back to the day Lucius yeeted his mother. Rio wants to go after him, but when he sees more zombies appearing from within the mansion, he stays back to help. When some of the monsters sneak up on Liselot, Aisha quickly takes them down, with the other of her maids showing up. Aisha and Celia urge Rio to go after Flora, assuring him that they can handle things without him. When he still hesitates, Celia tells him she can read the anxiety on his face and demonstrates a powerful spell to show him that she will be fine on her own. This puts his heart at ease, so he tells Aisha to protect everyone as he walks away. He then uses wind magic to jump away, and Celia casts a magic dome around all the civilians to protect them. Aisha is outside the dome, which makes Liselot worry, but Celia assures her she will be fine. When Aisha's bear strikes prove ineffective, she asks Chloe to lend her spear, and with a weapon in her hand, she takes down all of the monsters, which makes Celia wonder just who she is. Alphonse is watching Aisha from a distance, and once he recognizes her, he tells his minions to leave her for him. As they engage in a fierce battle, the other zombies attack Celia's dome and manage to tear it open. Celia manages to seal them in walls just in time, but one of the zombies slips through and lunges towards her. Aisha throws the spear at it to take it out, and with that, all that's left is Alphonse, who goes up against an unarmed Aisha. She cleverly dodges his attacks and somehow makes him strike the wall, which makes Alphonse's arm stuck in concrete. She's then handed another spear, and she uses it to strike Alphonse. The man gets up again to try his luck, but this time she beheads him and casually walks away. Meanwhile, Rio is going after Lucius and uses his leftover magic trail to locate him. He then appears directly in front of him, prompting Lucius to ask who he is. Instead of replying, Ryo gazes into his eyes with fierce anger, finally face to face with the man who destroyed his life. Meanwhile, Miharu finds himself in a cloudy realm where she sees Ryo living with his mother in a small cottage. The scene then shifts, and she sees Lucius mocking Ryo right after taking his mother's life. She then sees the current Ryo walk right by her with a sword in his hand and a determined look on his face. Ryo then slices Lucius in half, and when Miharu tries to hug him from behind, Ryo vanishes into dust. That's when she realizes she was dreaming all this time. In the forest, Flora is happy to see Ryo, and Lucius is impressed that he kept up with him. Ryo orders Lucius to unmask himself, but Lucius instead threatens to eat the princess. Ryo then gets straight to the point and tells the man he has come looking for a man named Lucius. He asks what Ryo would do if he finds Lucius, and Ryo says he'll flatline him, which makes him laugh. Lucius knows Ryo is the one with the spirit, but he cannot recognize him because of his changed face. Lucius is so confident in his ability that he lifts his hood and tells Ryo to take a good look at his face. He then mocks Ryo for looking so balmy despite declaring that he is here to end him, but Ryo says he's only content on the surface. Lucius then asks him why he's after his life, but Ryo says he doesn't want to talk anymore. Lucius quickly throws a knife at his heart to end it quickly, but the knife simply bounces off Ryo, leaving Lucius shocked. After accusing him of cheating, Lucius pulls out his sword and immediately rushes Ryo down, but Ryo manages to block all of his attacks. However, since he was only on defense, Lucius realizes he cares about Flora, which gives him an edge in their duel. Meanwhile, there's still a battle going on at the mansion, and all the zombies are targeting Aisha. However, she tells everyone not to worry because she's got plot armor. Back in the forest, Lucius charges Ryo again, and he realizes that somehow Lucius's sword gets longer with each poke. To counter this, Ryo suddenly rushes forward, but then suddenly disappears, only to appear above Lucius. He uses a spell to catch Lucius off guard, but the man just barely escapes the attack. He also realizes that Ryo is attacking very precisely to avoid hitting Flora, which means Ryo is an overpowered raid boss he would never have forgotten if they had met before. The only conclusion he has is that he must have met Ryo when he was young, so he tells Ryo he cannot have fun fighting him until he knows who he is. Ryo says fun doesn't matter when he is about to die, but Lucius insists that he tell him more about himself. When Ryo refuses, he puts a sword to Flora's throat and threatens to send her to the anime gods, but Ryo knows he won't hurt her. Lucius admits he's got him by the jewels and then asks if they met when he was very young, and Ryo's silence gives him the answer he needs. He also figures Ryo is not from this region, and once again, Ryo stays silent. Lucius is so curious to learn more about him that he agrees to let the princess go, so they settle it in a fair fight. But Ryo isn't sure if he can trust him or not. Lucius surprises him by actually letting Flora go, but asks her to stand in the middle where he can see her at all times. Once she is in place, Lucius demands that he tell him who he is, so Ryo mentions that he was living in the capital of Beltrum 10 years ago. Ryo continues that at that time, Lucius was looking for a certain mother and her son, and as soon as he hears this, Lucius finally realizes who Ryo is. He then starts mocking Ryo for being a worthless orphan who should have died that day, and he also admits he's been wanting to see him ever since. Ryo then goes into a flashback of the last time he saw his mom, right before Lucius barged in and forced him to drink poison. He then found himself in the slums, where Celia and the others approached him because they were looking for Flora. Unlike the others, Celia approached him with a smile and treated him kindly. Afterward, he saw Aisha for the first time as she awakened magic inside his body and told him it would help him live, which was his main goal at that time. He then rescued Flora from the kidnappers, and when he was carrying her to the castle, Christina slapped him because she thought he was a kidnapper. Soon after, he returned to his homeland, where he visited his parents' graves and paid his respects. He also met his grandparents and told them how he had a happy life with his mother until the day came when she was murdered right before her eyes. Hearing his story makes Lucius feel proud of his actions, and Ryo realizes he's the same monster he was 10 years ago. Ryo's father once told him that Ryo's mother was a princess of some far-off land, and when he took her life, she was begging him not to hurt her son. Hearing this story shocks Flora, and she finally realizes Ryo is the same boy who rescued her all those years ago. Lucius then challenges him to a duel with confidence, but even before he can finish his sentence, Ryo zips past him and severs his gunning arm. Finally facing Ryo's true power, Lucius realizes he's no match for this guy and tries to run away, but Ryo mercilessly pins him against a tree trunk using his boot. When Lucius makes another escape into the woods, Ryo causes a huge explosion that destroys all the trees in the area, which allows him to locate Lucius again. Now desperate, he tries every trick in the book, but Rio brings him right back to where it started. With a powerful attack, Rio breaks Lucius's ribs and damages his organs, and Flora watches this in horror. He then burns Lucius's arm before hitting his face with Daniel Bryan's finisher. Afterward, he stabs him with a sword and makes it burn, so Lucius suffers, but Lucius tries to attack Flora as a last resort. When Rio comes to her aid, Lucius gets a moment of relief before Reyes appears on the scene. Reyes tells Rio he has some business with Lucius and can't let him die yet. Since Rio doesn't have a problem with Reyes, he vows to find Lucius again and end him. Reyes then distracts Rio by summoning a fire-breathing dragon above him, which turns the whole forest into a barbecue party. With that, all the monsters disappear from the city, and Aisha confirms that Haruto is just fine. As Rio watches Reyes leave, Flora snuggles up to him to apologize to him and to thank him for saving her life. Rio says he does not deserve her gratitude because he's not the same Rio she speaks of, but if she wants to repay him, she can do so by never mentioning him again. Flora breaks down because she understands he wants to bury his past, and Rio feels bad for not telling her the truth. Meanwhile, Liselot is on her knees like your mom in the nightclub, thanking Celia and Aisha for saving so many lives. Celia says they still have to tend to the wounded, so Liselot takes them to the upper room, where she heals Duke Gustava. Roana then tells Liselot that they were saved thanks to Sakata, but it came at the cost of severe injuries. Celia then tells her that Flora was kidnapped by a mysterious man, which shocks her because she handed him over to that man for safety. She drops to her knees, blaming herself for the situation, but Gustave asks her to have some faith in Rio. Just then, Aisha informs them that Rio has returned, and he's carrying Flora in his arms. Celia is down bad for him, because he saved them on multiple fronts, so Rio asks her if she can take Flora to her room. However, Flora says that her legs are frozen, so Rio decides to carry her upstairs. On the way, Celia asks him if he knows the kidnapper, and Rio says he knew him personally a long time ago. He reveals that the man is named Lucius, and when Celia asks how he knows, he vaguely tells her without giving any specifics. Elsewhere, Reyes is tending to Lucius's wounds, but since he's beyond recovery, Reyes inserts a magical crystal into him. Lucius still thinks he had a chance, but Reyes gives him the reality check that not even the two of them could have taken Rio on. Lucius wants to plan his revenge, but Reyes strictly tells him to man up and accept defeat. Meanwhile, Rio carries Flora to Roana, who is relieved to see her. As he's about to leave, Liselot asks him to rest up and also invites him to a meeting later, where they can discuss what happened. Later, Rio tells Celia that Flora now knows about his identity, but he asked her to forget about it. Celia tells him not to worry because Flora is an honest person and will keep her word. He then declares they will head back to the Village of Spirits after his meeting with Liselot, prompting Aisha to ask if he is really okay. When he says he is, Celia asks him if he's willing to share his past, and he finally tells her Lucius is the man who yeeted his mother. He isn't sure, but he assumes Lucius also flatlined his father, and he admits he always wanted to tell her whenever she asked. He asks Celia to keep this info to herself, and she assures him that he can rely on her. During the meeting, Gustave reveals that Lucius was born into a low-ranked noble house in the kingdom and was once a candidate to become the king's sword. However, his house fell from nobility, and that's why he couldn't take the role. The man accompanying him is Reyes, and they know nothing about him except that he belongs to the kingdom of Proxia. After both Gustave and Liselot agree to carry out the investigation, Rio shares his plans of leaving the city, so they decide to reward him for his contribution. When they ask what he needs, he asks if he can attend the party in Gilarc, where all the heroes would be introduced. She asks if he has any specific reason as to why he wants to come, and Rio says he and his companions want to meet the hero Satsuki. A few days later, while Latifah and Miharu serve breakfast to everyone, they suddenly sense Rio coming and rush out to greet him. As usual, Latifah comes running in and jumps into his arms. Masato and Aki tell him they can now speak the language of this world fluently, and Miharu adds they have gotten used to this world thanks to everyone's help. Rio then breaks the news that he managed to learn the whereabouts of Satsuki, but unfortunately, their other friend, Takahisa, is still missing. He still assures Aki that they will find him soon, which puts her at ease. He also tells them about the hero gathering party and even says he will take them there so they can meet Satsuki. With that, the girls decide to throw a party to celebrate Rio's return, but Miharu is still in shock as she now suspects Rio and Haruto are the same person. In the coming month, Flora and the others return to their kingdom, while Liselot helps repair her city. Miharu and the others master their spirit arts, And eventually, the day of the party arrives. There, Satsuki is introduced as the first hero. Sakata is introduced as the second hero, and lo and behold, Takahisa is the third summoned hero. In the end, the hero of Beltrum Rui appears, right before Ryo is introduced as Haruto Amakawa, an honorary knight of the Galark Kingdom. This leaves Miharu in shock because hearing his last name confirms to her that Ryo and Haruto are the exact same person. Will Ryo ever tell Miharu about his past, or will he neglect her to seek revenge on Lucius? Let us know in the comments. Leave a like if you enjoyed and subscribe for more.